shoes last night to see if he was barefoot. Is that still the case? Is he barefoot? Because I know on Facebook somebody posted a picture of these could be his shoes, or is that so he is presumed to be barefoot at this point?
What I can say is that his mom says all of his shoes are accounted for at the house. I'm not going to say that he's barefoot.
All right.
Allegedly!
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative. Here's a brief disclaimer for tonight's show. Let's watch.
That's ignorant! Allegedly, that's ignorant! Ignorant.
Judgment, Austin.
Zoe, you read my thoughts. You've got the shinin.
You mean shining?
Shh, you wanna get sued?
Judgment, Austin.
You just use that shin of yours to call me and I'll come a-running.
Moving for what?
But don't be reading my mind between 4 and 5. That's Willie time.
Hey, yo, boss. I love it when he does that.
Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Lady Freedom here coming at you with another raw narrative. And I see CP Foundation, good to see you. Ann Reynolds, Show Poodles, thank you all for hitting that like button. And I see Ann Reynolds says, oh, your dog's afraid of the thunderstorms? Oh, I'm so sorry. Aw, poor little guy. Yeah, it can be really scary. I know some dogs they have to have like a thunder coat. I don't know if you've ever tried that, but sometimes they have like those coats that you can put on them. They feel more safe in the coat, and because I don't really know why they get so afraid of the storms, but it's probably because it's loud and scary. But I'm glad you all are here today. Happy Friday, or what we have left of it here. I'm on Eastern time, so I will turn midnight first. And I wanted to go over tonight an interview. So I have some clips prepared of the Candace Wells interview, and it happened shortly after. It's a several part series where we do get to tour the house that Summer went missing from. But I do want to say that I am elated that Dog the Bounty Hunter has taken on Summer's case and added her to the billboard. So I really wanted to highlight that because I think it's great news. And I think it's definitely a positive. So, hey, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom, good to see you. And so I think it's a super positive thing, but I wanted to take us back to kind of what happened this summer. And this is a really comprehensive look back at what was going on. The 4-year anniversary is going to be in June. And so Summer went missing. Thank you for hitting that like perfectly and perfect boy mom. Hey Lori, hey. I did have a chance to look at the live too, Lori. It had a lot of information kind of about a timeline kind of events. So but I didn't get to finish it. So but it was definitely a good live. It kind of took me back to like the communities that I was following Sebastian in at that time. So yes, and the reward changed too to $500,000. That's so right. Thank you, SCP Foundation. I do that all the time. I transpose numbers and letters. But Foundation, thank you so much for reminding us of that too, because that's a really big one, right? Because that's a big bounty, right? A big, large amount of money. And I'm just so grateful that, he decided to take Summer on, because that was the saddest part when I made that video comparison, the first one, because I did want to do more of a complex series, but we had so much happening. Oh, hey Meow. Okay. I know you as Meow, that's for sure. But it's so tough because back then I think there was a lot of confusion. It seems like there was a lot of parallels between like even the media attention, YouTubers, like Dawn was calling in. I heard a clip on Vinnie Politan, speaking of Jays for Justice, of Dawn talking to her whenever the boys were taken out of the home as well, because Summer had 3 brothers too. So, and there is a lot of really sad pieces to Summer's story. She's still missing. She's still out there. And so with the $500,000 reward, that is a really great rejuvenation after, almost 4 years now. And I think it's fantastic. Fantastic news. And again, I think there's so many comparisons. So I've added a little bit in. For those of you that don't like music, I tried to use more memes in the beginning. So some of the clips are not going to have music. Some of them are. I think that music can really convey something beautiful and bring something. I think that it can elevate a piece, even if it's news coverage, to another level. And I have a really deep connection with music. I always have. I'm not a musician myself, but I just really appreciate other artists and kind of like incorporating that into the videos. And it also is transformative too. So it also falls under a fair use, where I can transform the piece into something that I've created as well, or put input in as well. But not all of the pieces will have that. Some of them will have the memes that kind of might make you guys laugh, or might make you guys think, oh my gosh, because the stories are kind of ridiculous. They do not make sense, is the first really big comparison that I see when I look back on Summer. And I watched all of these interviews. I remember watching at least, well, I will say maybe they weren't all of them. I think I watched 1 through 3, but I think there's like 4 or 5 that Chris McDonough did. And I would love to kind of explore those as we move along. There's so much that happened in Summer's case, right? She was on Dr. Phil. They were talking about the cornbread mafia in her case. I mean, really, really odd things. And then Candace storming off of Dr. Phil because of the behavioral panel's behavior, according to her. So I did a little bit more of a deep dive into Summer today, just kind of looking at some things that I can show you. And I do also have who we've come to know as Grandis, who is Candace's mother, who was actually living on the property in a camper next to their house. So just kind of a look back at everything that has happened so far in the case. And there, like I said, there's been a ton, and there's a lot of similarities. So we'll go ahead and watch this first clip.
Some woman made this shirt for me. I'm not sure exactly what her name is.
And tell me the significance of this shirt. Why is it so important?
Because my daughter loved Paw Patrol.
Okay. Yeah, she did Paw Patrol. What else? Princesses.
Ponies, and she loved Frozen. And then she started with these. They're little animals, but I'm not sure what they are. And they got big eyeballs. I can't remember what the name of them are. I got a couple on my window.
Are they like little? They got like the big eyes, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they got the big eyes.
Yeah.
She likes bracelets and jewelry, and she's just a round girl.
Yeah, yeah. So let's take me back to that day when y'all were here swimming.
Okay.
You okay with that? Okay. So let's walk me down. Is this where you parked?
Yeah, this is where I park. I park here all the time.
All the time. And now, do you come here a lot?
I used to come here a lot. Yeah.
And do you bring the kids here?
I'd bring the kids here all the time, and they'd either fish or swim,
Okay.
whichever.
Right.
It's there's nobody down here hardly.
Right.
So it's away from. I don't like to have the kids around a bunch of other kids because of all the sickness and stuff that's been going around, different kids and stuff like that.
Yep.
So this was more secluded, private kind of thing, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. That makes
I'm
sense.
more of a quiet kind of person. I don't like to be in a big crowd.
Yeah.
I tend to stick to myself and my family, and that's it.
Yeah. And when you guys got here, who was with you? There's a lot of rumors
my
about.
My mother was with me.
Yep.
And my daughter.
Yep.
Summer, and Hunter was with us.
Okay. Now, tell me about the dynamics of what everybody was doing. Who was doing what when you first got here? What happened?
I got out of the car first, and then I opened the back door because my mom's got a double door on her truck.
Right.
So I opened the back door and I let her and Hunter out.
Okay.
And Summer's first thing is to run to the water, of course.
Right.
And I was like, Summer, just wait, let me get my stuff and I'll walk over there with you. And she waited for me, and I don't know, Hunter went off into the woods somewhere. I don't know where he went.
Now, where was Summer sitting?
She was sitting in the middle seat.
Okay.
Hunter was sitting on the end.
Okay.
And my mom said, hold on a minute, so we waited for my mom to get out.
Okay.
And Hunter, he just done disappeared into the woods. I don't know where he went.
Okay. Okay.
And me and my mom and Summer walked over there, and we were just letting Summer play, and then Hunter eventually come back out of the woods wherever he was.
Okay.
And
so let's walk over there. Show me. And I'll just follow you, okay?
No.
So I'll follow you on which direction. And
everything's slow motion now.
I know. So which direction does Hunter go?
He went that way.
He went that way. Now, was he in a bathing suit?
No, I think he just had his shorts and his shirt on.
Okay, and Summer, was she in her bathing suit?
Yes.
And how did she get in her bathing suit? Or?
I actually put her bathing suit on before we left home because it was really hot out that day.
Okay.
So it was just something small and thin, not so hot.
Okay.
Because I know how she gets too hot.
Okay. And what was the temperature that day? Give me an idea.
Probably in the 80s.
Okay. So it's Tennessee warm.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like it is now.
And are you an air-conditioned person, or in your mom's truck was the AC on? Or
I don't like AC.
Okay. So what happened? Where do you guys go, and where's Summer going here?
We all walked down this path, me, my mom, and Summer.
All right. So all three of you together.
Yeah.
Now, how does Mom's knee handle this hill here?
Well, she uses her cane, so it's a little bit easier, and she'll hold on to my shoulder, so.
Okay.
She doesn't fall or nothing.
So you're kind of escorting her down here.
Yeah.
And is Summer ahead of you or behind you?
She's right here in front of me.
Okay. So walk me through that.
Oh, we're just walking down through here. I mean, usually, like I said, we go slow because of my mom's knee.
Okay.
Messed up.
Okay.
I was just standing here at the end, and then, well, the water's up a lot further than it usually is. Usually it's down. You can usually see all that wood sticking up out of the water. And she was just playing right here.
And what time do you get here about, if you remember?
I couldn't even tell you, to be honest with you. Time is... I don't keep track of time.
No, I understand.
I mean, I get up in the morning, I do my thing with the kids, and then we go to bed.
Okay.
I couldn't even tell you. I know I went to the hospital at 8 with my mom, dropped her off, and I was sitting there, and Hunter called me and asked me what I was doing. I said I was sitting at the hospital in the parking lot waiting on my mom to get done. And he said, well, why don't y'all come over? I said, well, as long as your mom says it's okay. And I guess he woke her up or said something to her, and he said, yeah, she said it's fine for a little bit, because I guess his grandma was coming over or something. She don't like her. But I don't like her either, so.
Okay.
That's true.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, seems like you guys have had a falling out. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And,
it was stupid part on out, really, honestly.
Okay, guys. So there was a falling out, but they still hang out with Hunter, right? Or seems like it's still okay for Hunter to go hang out with Candace, and it's kind of weird. I don't know of any children that, like, I would say go ask your mom if we can play. It was, I don't know. Tell me what you guys think, but I think that was like a huge red flag for me. Just really odd. Hey, Connie S, good to see you. Hey, Michelle, good evening. Good evening. Oh no, you woke up with fever, Lori. Oh goodness sakes. Oh. Yeah, it's all right. No worries. Don't worry. Just get better, and you can watch me on the replay. I appreciate you being here still. Um, hey, Cinderella. Good to see you. Hey, Holly S. Good to see you guys. Welcome in. Welcome in. Hey, everybody. Yes, Michelle, please take care, rest, and fluids. That's really good advice. So, I mean, there's a lot in the first bit here, right? So Chris McDonough seems like he wants to kind of ask a couple of questions about who Summer is at first to kind of get to know what kind of a kiddo she is, right? Which was kind of nice there. So Candace is wearing a Mom Patrol t-shirt that someone made her, and it's like for Paw Patrol, the TV show that kids like. And so she also says that Summer likes princesses, ponies, Frozen, and then I think she was trying to say the Littlest Pet Shop, little pets, right, that the little girls like. She also describes Summer as being girly, and in some of the photos we're going to see, Summer has extremely short hair, and we even spoke a lot about that, even when Chloe came up, when Chloe Jade was up on panel, and we were talking about kind of the stages of her hair, because Chloe's a hairdresser, and so she can identify those things and hair growth and very easily, more easily maybe than I could, because I'm not a hairdresser. And so we did discuss that kind of extensively on the first slide that I did about Summer. And I'll link that one in the description below too, so you all can go watch it. It was really interesting. So either way, we're at the park, if you will, or the place that they went swimming, their swimming hole, if you will. We all kind of have those. I'm very used to like freshwater. This is, living in Florida, it's different going to the beach, because it's salt water and it's a big beach. But a lot of times I'd be used to kind of this kind of environment where you just kind of pull up, your vehicle, and then you get out, you might float down the river, things like that. So I'm very familiar with kind of this sort of day. Usually you bring like a picnic and stuff like that, but it seems like maybe they just stopped over, because earlier in the day they were at the hospital with Grandis, right? So there was that. Oh, hey Meg, good to see you. So they go over and they pick up Hunter from his house, right? So it's going to be Candace, Grandis, Hunter, and Summer all going to this swimming hole, right? And just to keep it into perspective, Summer went missing in around like 6:30 p.m. later that day, right? So right off the bat, Candace starts describing the area and why she would park in the area, but he wasn't asking her that. She just offered that information up. So I found that to be interesting. So she just said, this was a secluded private area. She was describing herself as being like overly cautious because of the other children that Summer could have encountered, may give her some sort of a sickness, because there was a sickness going around, which I found to be a little bit odd with that too. Now, some parents are very cautious over their children, and they, look after them very carefully to make sure they don't get sick. It is common for little kids to get sick, especially at school. Somebody's sick at school and then they catch it, right? So I get what she's saying in a way, but again, kind of offering a lot of information up that's not necessary. Also, she describes herself kind of as a good mom who's, kind of a homebody. I'm kind of keep to myself. I just worry about, my mother, my daughter, and, my family. So I thought that was interesting too, because again, it was just a lot of detail that wasn't really, required, nor was it asked of her. So we have that. Yeah, and especially princesses have such long, long hair. Oh, you do, Connie? Oh my goodness. Yeah, little girls like to have their hair long, right? I mean, I still like to wear my hair long as well. And, I just kind of feel like it was something that kind of made her look more like maybe her brothers, right? And she had three brothers. And so, again, she really didn't have anybody to be girly with, but yet she was girly and she did prefer that, even according to her mom. So, ooh, yeah, the allergies are kicking people's booties. That's for sure. Aw. Yeah, good mom. Connie says, good mom. No. My daughter did. Yeah. And, I mean, it's just one of those things, it's like, I understand a tomboy, but if she wasn't a tomboy, or they're not describing her in that light, then it kind of doesn't make sense why her hair was short at different times. It wasn't just one time, right? Because we even discussed, like, possibly like a lice outbreak at school or something, and the next thing you know, she comes home and she's got lice or something like that. It wasn't like that. It was actually, different times where they were shaving her head, or cutting her hair extremely short. And there are a few in there. Show poodles. So Hunter is like a friend of the family, but he's a young kid. That, kind of later on, we'll find out that there may have been some inappropriate relationship between, Hunter and Candace. And it definitely seems inappropriate. Like, she says that Hunter called her that morning. So she had her mother at the hospital. Her mom was in there. She was out in the parking lot, according to Candace. She was sitting there, and Hunter calls her and asks if she will come over, almost like a child would call their other, like a friend of theirs, and be like, hey, you want to play? You want to come over? And so, like, I found that to be like really weird. So yeah, it's like a family friend, and that's his mother is who Candace is saying, I don't like her, we don't get along. And we're about to find out why they don't get along. Hey, momming it up, good to see you. I hope you had a great day today. um Connie S says yes, and her brothers didn't have real short hair. Right, right. That's so true, Connie. Thank you for reminding me of that too. you know so it's like, that's another very bizarre thing, right, for her to have short hair like that. It's very odd. And she's such a beautiful little girl. I mean, the picture up there, that's the one on the billboard, and then there's several in here that I kind of go back and forth and put in the video so you all can see what she looked like. But just a precious little girl. Candace says that she got out of the car first, right? And then she opened the door. Summer was situated in the middle, right? And then on either side of her, apparently, was, Grandis and Hunter, because it was the four of them, right? And then she said that, Summer ran out and she wanted to go straight to the water. And so she really loved going down and being in the water. So they followed her down there. And then Candace says that Hunter takes off right into the woods. He disappears into the woods, as far as she says, and he's out there in the woods, right? So Summer played for a little bit, and they're going to walk down to the water where they were kind of, playing and setting for the day. And then Hunter came back, Candace says, from the woods, right? But she doesn't really specify like how long, or how long he was in the woods. She says he does eventually come back, though, before they leave, I'm assuming. Now, Candace says that Summer gets hot, and that she put her in her bathing suit that day because, I mean, it is June, right? It's Tennessee in June. But she said she put her in her bathing suit that day early because it was so hot and because Summer gets hot. But look at this little baby. This is from that day. She's wearing pants and a long sleeve sweatshirt. Like, it's weird. Or maybe it's a little bit lighter, like a long sleeved shirt. But it seems like she would be really, really hot. And again, we see her with extremely short hair. I mean, just really, really short hair. So, summer gets hot. It's in the 80s, according to Candace, because she was asked that by Chris. He says, what was the, temperature that day? And she said it was in the 80s. And I definitely wouldn't want to wear that outfit if it was me and it was 80 degrees outside. You know. So either way, they walk down this path and they go, and now, of course, when they walk down the path at first, it's just Grandis, Candace, and Summer. And then Candace says something very odd here, which it seems like there is a big similarity in that with Katie, because she doesn't really tell time very well, right? But Candace admits it. She's like, look, I'm not a big time person. I don't keep track of time, right? And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe if she's a stay-at-home mom, maybe like the day goes by so fast. But typically when you have, 4 children, you do learn time management, whether you want to or not, because, you have 4 children that you're juggling, right? And you have to get them places, and they have to go to school, and, they do extracurricular activities, hopefully, if it's normal environment. So you're, they're going back and forth between things, and you're picking them up and dropping them off. But she says that she doesn't take good time at all. And then, of course, we're going to go into kind of Hunter calling Candace and kind of the reason why Candace doesn't get along with Hunter's mom. And, buckle up, because it's about to get really weird. Even more weird than, some of the things that I feel like that Katie has said, out there. Hey, little Miss Sharon, good to see you. Candace just said it. It was so hot. I know, exactly, show poodles. And, I don't know if it was really humid that day, or, sometimes when you do get out of the water, you're, a little bit chilly. And so you might put a sweater on, but like pants and a sweater, I don't know. And it's like it was fully, covering her. It's not like it was like a zip up that was kind of, had some room to get some air in there and things like that. So let's watch this. But like I said, and, trigger warning, and also just foul language, and inappropriate, weird commentary, I guess. But here we go.
What was it over?
Well, I don't know if it was her husband or Hunter's, I'm just going to say Hunter's daddy, come out with all these guys and stuff, and we're supposed to move down here. And they couldn't find a place to stay or whatever. Well, I don't really remember what this guy's name was. I know he's a Mexican, I think. And
that Jose guy?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, she wanted him to stay. And she was also staying at my house.
Okay.
So I said, well, if you're going to be with him, that's fine. You know what I'm saying? That's fine. That's y'all's deal. And I don't know, they did whatever they did because I didn't really pay attention to them. I just hung out with the kids and my mom. And then one day he just goes, I like chicks with dicks. After him and her did whatever. And she got all pissed off and just said, told my mom, take me and my kids back to my place. I'm out of here. So I don't even know what really happened.
Okay.
She just went off the handle. And ever since that, I don't know, she's just been hateful towards me. And I don't know, I don't get it. I really wish I could understand it.
Okay.
And she stuck me with that guy. And then my husband got home. He's like, well, who's this guy, you know? And I'm like, Allie left him here, abandoned him here. I was like, he ain't got no place to go, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then my mom took him after my husband and him got into a little squirrel. My mom took him, I believe it was to North Carolina to some chick's house. And then that was the end of him. I never heard from him again.
And that, so your mom drove him up there?
Yeah, my mom did.
Okay.
And I never heard from the guy again.
What part of North Carolina, do you know?
I don't even know.
Okay. What kind of vehicle did he have, if any?
He didn't have no vehicle.
Okay. Your mom took him
My
up?
mom took him in her truck.
Got it. Straight up. Okay. Then, so you're down here, and all of a sudden now, Summer is doing what?
Summer's just playing in the water right here.
Okay.
I'm just standing right here. All the flowers that died that were there on that.
Oh, so there were a bunch of flowers
here?
There
a bunch of flowers right here, yeah, on this little petal. I don't know what, I guess they've all died now, but.
Okay. And where's Grandma?
Mom's standing right here.
Okay.
And I'm over here close to the edge just because Summer's in the water, you know what I'm saying? That's my thing.
Okay.
And she's just playing, you know, like a normal kid would play in the water. And then Hunter came from wherever he was and come down here and was standing here. I don't want to get all wet, but
yeah.
He was like standing here and Summer was out a little bit further. They were pretty far apart from like me and your wife is.
Okay. Is that the TikTok video you took?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can see how far they were apart.
Yeah, I can see it, right.
And with him sitting there saying that she fell on a rock, there's no rock. Where do you see a rock?
Right. Yeah, the only rocks I saw were right over here.
Yeah, and
then up there.
Yeah, they're way over there, and I'm right here.
Okay. So this is where she is, though?
Yeah, this is where she is right here.
Okay. And how is she, what's her behavior?
She's jumping around, splashing, having a good time. Just like Summer would always do.
Okay.
I mean, that's how all my kids are.
Okay.
They just splash around and have a good time.
Does she go underwater at any time that you see?
Oh, she just dips her head in, but sticks it right back up. I mean, it was only up to here at the time.
Where did this idea of under the water, where's that come from? Okay.
That just blew my mind when I heard that. I was like, she didn't even go into, because when she was playing in the water, I was literally taking the TikTok video. Just to watch, you know, and I did different things because that's how TikTok is. You can do different things with them.
Right.
And I was just taking TikTok video, and he come up out of there somewhere, and I was like, just splashed around, and then he threw up gang signs.
Do you know them?
No, I have no idea who that is.
Okay.
And then he started throwing up gang signs, and I'm like, so I moved it back away from him as quick as I could, and I was videoing them flowers, and then back at Summer again real quick. And then he decided to get in the water right there. And he went like this with the water a couple times. I told him, please stop that. She don't like to be splashed.
Okay.
And so he quit and got out. And I said, come on, Summer, we got to go get Grandma's prescription. And we just got back in the truck and left.
Okay, so a lot has been said about the tea thing, right? And there's can over there and stuff. Now, I asked Hunter,
when we come down
tell me
here,
the story on that.
This place was littered in trash.
Okay.
It was all trash down here. Like, them teas were all over through there, all through everywhere.
Okay.
There was flowers that my mom wanted to pick from here, and I said, Mom, you better not do that. It's a state park. You get in trouble for that if you get caught.
Okay.
I'm not getting caught for that.
Okay.
And I told her that, and so we just walked on back to the truck, but I don't know where that iced tea coming from. I know that I did buy an iced tea from the smoke shop in town, but I bought that iced tea from my mother.
Okay. Okay.
And if she was here today, she would tell you that.
Right. Right.
And the vapes that I bought were nicotine vapes from the hippie house.
Next door.
Right, next door.
Okay.
Well, no, they're kind of, one's further down by the mall. The smoke shop's further down by the mall where I got the iced tea. And the hippie house is just right over here before you crossed over the bridge.
Got it.
All right, guys. So hippie house for vapes, and then she bought an iced tea for her mom, right? For Grandis. And good to see you, everybody coming in. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, Poppy Love. Hey, Sea Star, good to see you. Puppy Love says, "What river is this?" You know, I'm not sure. It's a state park. She says, to Grandis, don't pick the flowers here because you may not be able to since it's a state park. But I'm not sure which one. I bet you Connie might know. So yeah, that was an awkward kind of a twisted tea. Very possible, very possible. Meow. I mean, seriously. Hey, Robini, good to see you. So Candace said she didn't know Jose, right? So she goes, I think he's some Mexican guy. Like, I don't know who he is, right? But then, like, Chris is like, "Oh, isn't that Jose?" And she was like, "Oh, yeah." She's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's Jose." Like right away, no hesitation. Not like, "Ooh, I think that's his name." Like, no, it was just like, boom. I know this guy, right? Yes, I do know that is Jose that we're referring to, and then, we find out that she knows Jose like a lot better than, what she's putting out. So then, or what she just stated more or less. And so she goes on to tell us that like he was in some sort of a encounter with Hunter's mother, and then she ends up kicking Jose out, and Candace takes him in, and then she's explaining to Don like, "Look, this guy doesn't have any place to live." And so then Grandis at some point, which she doesn't specify, moves this guy over to North Carolina, right? She takes him there in her vehicle or a vehicle, and takes him up to North Carolina. So that's where we kind of are introduced to Jose. Hey, Baba Rose, the guy that she said that she didn't know who he was. So Summer was playing in the water, right? And we see the water where they were playing. It looks pretty shallow, but different days that you go, the water level might be up and it might be down. Candace says it was down that day. She talks about the flowers that, I guess, I'm assuming she's talking about like maybe people put flowers at this site because that was one of the last times, Summer was, out and about. Was at the water hole, right? And so she said that the flowers died though, right? And she didn't say it like with any emotion whatsoever. She's just saying like, "Oh, the flowers died. I don't know. They used to be here. They were alive, at some point." Like very nonchalant, very matter of fact, and with no emotion whatsoever, because, it's really, really difficult to believe that she's feeling emotional about Summer's being missing, and she's just able to say like, "The flowers died," just so easily. Most of the time people would be emotional, in my opinion. They took a TikTok video, right? So Chris asks Candace, "What was Summer doing?" He goes, or she said she was just splashing around, right? Jumping around, splashing, having a good time, just kind of being herself, right? She's a little girl. She's adorable. There was a video on Dr. Phil where she was dancing around. I mean, she's just as cute as she can be, right? And he asks her, did Summer go under the water at all? And Candace says no, she dipped her head in, but the water wasn't very deep. So allegedly Hunter came back as they're making this TikTok video, and he starts throwing up like some gang symbols, right? And so she told him to stop, and he kind of gets in the water and is messing around in the water. They go on to, because after they're going to go swimming for a little while, they're supposed to go pick up Grandis's prescriptions at Walgreens, right? And then she also mentions that before this, or maybe even possibly after, I haven't kind of quite decided, but she talks about how they stopped over at the hippie house for vapes, and then that's where they bought Grandis a tea. And we do find out about the slushy, right? Because we were talking about what kind of slushy that Summer could have had that day, and we do find out that Candace is going to recall that she had a grape slushy. So, for those of you who were with us last time that we talked about Summer's case, that is the flavor that she had, right? Because a lot of people were wondering if she was in fact still with us in this picture here, because we see that her lips are very look like, you know, very pink or fuchsia, even turning into maybe a purplish color. But if she was in fact drinking a purple slushy, that could have caused the color on her lips. But, you know. Hey Vic, good to see you. Good to see you, good to see you. These parents are so strange to me too, Meg. I mean, weird. They are like the Hills Have Eyes vibes, for sure. For sure. You know, and I will tell you, I think that Chris McDonough is a very kind, gentle person. He's very, he's a very good interviewer, right? He asks some great questions in here, and we get a lot of information. But he also, you know, treats Summer's mom, you know, Candace, with a lot of respect and care. You know, and she's not like an aggressive person in this interview, right? She's kind of just very nonchalant, very matter of fact, but not hostile by any means, or upset or anything like that. But again, he just is very, you know, kind to her, because, you know, a lot of times when there's this many inconsistencies, it can be really frustrating interviewing somebody, and especially, you know, listening to some of the context that Candace is giving. You know, it's got to be a little bit awkward, to say the least, for Chris, because I would be taken back by somebody telling me the information that Candace was telling him, you know, and he's just like, okay, all right, sounds good, you know, but, you know, he's just kind of taking it all in. Um, Perfectly Perfect Boy Mom says, but she wasn't worried about trash, but was worried about Summer getting sick. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And I think she was just really trying to paint a good image of herself to Chris, right? Like, I'm just, you know, a mom, and, you know, I just don't want her getting sick from the other kids. So we kind of went to this secluded spot. But, you know, some people may argue that Summer made it home, you know, maybe she didn't. You know, we don't know. We know that you know, the milk was bought and she was pictured next to the milk. So there's just so many twists and turns in this case. Um, it's just hard to, it's really hard to kind of follow the events. And then of course we don't have people who are telling the truth, because again, you know, just the really small little thing, like knowing a person named Jose, like, why would you try to hide that? What, you know, why couldn't you just be like, yeah, there was like a man named Jose and they got together, and, you know, da 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 da. But at first she's just like, oh, I think I know that guy. But, you know, when Chris asks her flat out, she's like, oh yeah, yeah, that's him. You know, it's just those little things that you look for. And then also giving all of these details that really don't matter, right? Is that going to help find Summer? Probably not. Not unless that man, you know, came back and hurt Summer or something like that, right? And let's see here. Hey, Linda, good to see you. Thank you for hitting the like, Vic. Thank you. Meg says if she had to take the grandest to the appointment, and it was at 8 a.m., did Summer or the other children she left at home eat breakfast? And yes, the children she left at home alone. Right, exactly, Meg. That's a great point, because you kind of do wonder, like, where are the other kids at, right? But yeah, she did leave them, you know, at the house, and then she goes and picks up another kid, you know, and brings that kid in Summer only with Grandis, right? Because I guess Grandis had some running to do that day. But yeah, I wonder about breakfast too. I mean, even especially if you're going to be out all day, I think they ended up going to Sonic, if I can remember correctly, a little bit later. But still, if that's a full day without any type of, you know, food, and yeah, especially when it's hot in the summertime, you're swimming. um and a lot of sugary stuff. Because I mean, right next to, I know a lot of people think in this photo that that looks like a sippy cup, but that is an orange like crush pop, you know. And well, then of course we're going to hear about the slushies and stuff like that. So just like really, really sugary, no sustenance, or, you know, nothing good or healthy. Hey, Forget Me Not, good to see you. Yeah, thank you, C Star. Jose was living with her. She knew him. And she told Don, like, he's going to have to stay for a little while because he was kicked out for, you know, saying he had a different sexual preference or whatever. Very strange. And, you know, something that you're not expecting, right, in an interview like this. Again, it's the outrageous things that the parents are saying that's making everybody act in an outrageous way when they cover it, in my opinion. It's like creating a chaotic situation, because instead of us just getting to the meat and potatoes about what happened that day and what could have happened to Summer, we have to hear about some dude named Jose and what he prefers. It's very strange, and it makes absolutely no sense to me why a mother would be focused on that or ever even bring it up. I mean, you can say, you know, Hunter's mother and I have our differences and leave it at that. But, you know, we may see a little bit further down that there's something more to that, you know, because we are going to be deep diving into Summer's case, you know, and comparing it with Sebastian's and talking about it. I think it's really important, especially now that we have, you know, Dog representing Summer. I think it's absolutely the best time to do it. Connie S says Hunter said Summer was left an hour while shopping. Wow. Yeah, and there's other people that speculated really hard on the fact that maybe Summer was in the hot car or something happened and an accident occurred, right? Where they, because people do leave the kids in the car sometimes. So, and the vehicle, the red vehicle that's in this interview, to my knowledge, is a different vehicle that Don had bought Candace after there was a domestic dispute. And then she dropped the charges and he ended up buying her the red vehicle. But correct me if I'm wrong, you know. Hey, Mama Davis. Mama Davis says these parents are so unbelievable. I pray Summer is found. Yes, absolutely. She's such a sweet girl, isn't she? She's just adorable. Her little face, you know, and there's a lot of pictures where she does have, you know, longer hair, and you could tell, you know, she's smiling bigger. She's more confident. It just kills me, like, what they did to her. Hey, Lil Miss Sharon. Lil Miss Sharon says Summer has been missing 4 years this June 15th. Purple hearts. Thank you. Yeah, that's why we're purple tonight, is for Lil Summer. Yes. Michelle says deflection away from her being questioned she might not want to answer. Well, that is absolutely right, Michelle, because, right, if she makes the interviewer feel uncomfortable, especially him being a man and talking about chicks with schmicks, right? Well, there you have it. You know, that's going to make a man feel uncomfortable. I would say 8 out of 9, 10, you know, times, maybe even 7 out of 10 times, right? You know, but it's kind of might make anybody feel uncomfortable, honestly, because it's something that kind of catches you off guard and you're like, wait a minute, you know, I was just asking you about the conflict between you and Hunter's mother, and then you pop off with this nonsense, and I'm just sitting here like, what? And we noticed too, Michelle, thank you for your comment, that she does dodge a lot of the questions, and she goes into other scenarios that don't even have to do with the question that was asked, you know. I can't imagine what was going through Chris McDonough's mind at this point. You know, he handles himself really well. You know, yeah, a lot of little kids have passed in the hot cars, Connie. It's so sad, you know, because it just gets so much hotter, and then kids can't regulate their heat as good as adults can and things like that. Well, and obviously we know how to operate all of the, you know, gadgets in the car that would help us. It's absolutely so sad. C-Star says Chris knows all this before the interview. In my opinion, he wants her to talk. Oh, absolutely, C-Star. Yeah, he probably does. Well, and you can kind of tell that. Actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that, because you can kind of see that he knows, right? Even with even going back to Jose, he is like, well, isn't that one guy that, lived with you guys? So he kind of does, like, he's very prepared. He does know what is going on, and, what, he's going to interview, what he's going to ask her. Absolutely. Hey, James Cooper. James Cooper says, myself, and in my opinion, I believe that this Jose may have been the one behind Summer going missing, and feel that is why he too, in his own life. Well, and possibly, because why wouldn't she want to talk to him? Or why would she pretend like she didn't know him when she did? It's just odd. And it could be just her trying to throw off and manipulate, but, maybe he had something to do, and Mama Davis says, on Dr. Phil, Candace mentioned the cornbread mafia. Yeah, she was asked about the cornbread mafia, right? And those are, that's an organized crime group that was mainly, responsible for, distributing Mary Jane to the population, right? And now they're more or less like involved in hemp and things like that. And of course, a lot of that is legal in a lot of places. So, but they ended up disbanding that back in the 80s. So, a very, very long time back. But they asked her about it, and that is the question that made her get up and leave, and she was crying. And then they asked her afterwards, like, how come that was, so emotional for you? Because of course we see her in this interview and she's not emotional at all. There's another interview where we're going to look at the home and go into her home with Chris McDonough, and she's not emotional in that interview at all either, but that struck a chord with her, right? And she started crying, and she said, it just sounded really scary to me, which, I mean, as a mom, I can relate to that. Maybe cornbread mafia sounds a little bit like mafia is probably the scarier of the two words, right? Cornbread. But yeah, they were definitely mentioned. And, I went down that rabbit hole myself. With the cornbread mafia, kind of doing my research on them and that sort of thing. Hey, Sammy. Sammy says, this is a lot of news coming out about slushies making kids seriously sick because of the chemical in them, and kids under 8 should not drink them. Really? Google it, y'all. Oh, Sammy. Okay. I didn't know that. I had no idea, I wonder what that is. I will have to Google it for sure. That's interesting. I've never heard of that. Wow. And you think of that being like a cool treat, especially if it's hot outside and stuff like that, I'm not knocking slushies either, but it's like, you like Meg said, you didn't hear them about nothing about eating breakfast. What are the kids at home, doing? Are they fed, taken care of? They do get taken away from Don and Candace later on too. Arguably for the incident when Don was drinking, there's kind of mixed signals on that. I mean, Don was basically like, they're better off. It was weird. Usually I think that would be very emotional. Now, Candace was very emotional about that from what I saw. But they did take the boys. Hey, Cal Gal, good to see you. Schmick. I didn't know what to say. I did not know what to say. Hey, Panda Bear's mom, good to see you. Oh, I'm glad to hear that too, Panda Bear's mom. That's wonderful. She did get really upset. Yeah, she did. Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom, and she like took her mic off and she left the stage, and she was really crying and everything. Like, she looked like she was genuinely upset about that comment. Yeah, Mama Davis only, but I think like they were also involved in like trafficking other substances and possibly, other things, because you know how when you get kind of interconnected, and a lot of the mafia, like spin-off mafia people, are, you know, connected to other mob ties, right? Like, you know, even the Cornbread Mafia was linked to Al Capone. So, I mean, you know, it's very interesting, like, to go back and see. And then also there's, you know, main corridors that go through and kind of connect, you know, like different, like rug highways, if you will, you know, to where people are kind of working together to distribute and, you know, sell and get it to their people and da 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 da, you know. So I do cornbread with with red beans. I know their name makes me kind of hungry and scared. No, I'm just kidding. I love cornbread with like chili, beans, so good. Um, Cornbread Mafia makes me think of very backwards, shady things might be taking place. Listen for banjos. Well, you know, Michelle, and maybe that's right. You know, because like that's why I could see her getting like upset like that and being like, "Oh my gosh, Cornbread Mafia! Oh my gosh, it sounds like, you know, like a hillbilly mafia." You know, not to be disrespectful to anybody at all, but it's like, you do think about that, right? And like some pretty scary characters, so I can see why that would have upset her. And you know, from to my knowledge, there was some dirty dealings, of course, you know, just with any gang or, you know, mafia affiliations, you know, you kind of have that going on. And then who knows if, you know, Hunter was into that and that was the signs that he was throwing. I don't know. You know, but it's kind of scary. Hey, Rogue, good to see you. I like your little emoji. And James Coover says, we'll never know, in my opinion, but with CP and KP, that is a very different story, in my opinion, because we know what we know, which is, in my opinion, is more than we do with Candace. And so, yeah, and so, yeah, Dawn, yes. In my opinion, I would also believe Candace over KP. Well, I think that Candace's demeanor is a little bit nicer. I will say that. But there are some very rough kind of things in Candace's, you know, past and stuff like that. And we're gonna kind of deep dive into the similarities and contrasts between Katie and Candace, because I think it's really interesting, James, to kind of like look at the kind of how should I say, the unconscious bias that we kind of saw with Sumner County, and then kind of what we see with Candace and Don, right? Because even looking at the two residences, you have one that's in a more affluent, nicer neighborhood. You have the other, which is in a more rural, kind of backwoods, if you will. Again, I don't want to disrespect anybody, kind of environment, right? Where it's very kind of wooded, you know, open and, you know, country, right? So, um, just the differences in the way that they were treated, um, you know, and like I said, when we go to see the house, we're going to do that tomorrow night. When we go see where Summer went missing from, if you haven't seen it before, it's very shocking. Even the way that Summer would get down into her bedroom, and there were things that were on the TV. There were a lot of inappropriate things, not only, you know, that Candace brought up here when they were at the river at the state park, but we're also going to see how inappropriate even their home environment is. So that's a huge contrast, right, between Chris and Katie, because we have the other, you know, Katie works, right? You know, stays home and Don does drywall. He doesn't hang it. He does like the taping and mudding and everything. And then Chris makes more money, obviously. And then Katie with her income. So, and they live in a nicer area. They also have, you know, more money in terms of familial money. So those are some things that I want to explore later on, with all of you guys, because I think it's interesting, but there's a lot of similarities, especially when it comes to the choices that they make in the creators they deal with, the choices that they make kind of and again, not knocking anybody, because when you lose your kid, right, you could just want to always be sedated, or we've talked about that too. You might just want to give up on everything, and it's a very sad thing. So I wouldn't want to you know judge anybody too harshly, right? Because I mean, who knows how we would feel or what we would do. Um, but again, just kind of watching what unfolds, I think is something that is interesting, to kind of go over, because it may give us clues as to what could have happened to little Summer. Um, and like I said, 4 years later, she could really use a boost, and talking about her and things like that. So and Meg says, I can only imagine a group of men sitting around saying how they need to come up with a new. I think they all love cornbread. Yeah, no kidding, Meg. Oh my gosh, that's funny. That's funny. And I don't know, and I think that is a new name, cornbread. Oh, oh, thank you, Rogue. Thank you. Hungry and scared. Rogue. It makes me hungry and scared. And Michelle says probation days might have a drink of choice in the South. Oh, prohibition days. Yeah, well, and that's the thing, I mean, that was a thing that was, um really big too in the area, I would imagine. Um, moonshining. And the Jersey lady, good to see you, Jersey lady, says, "Oh my goodness, I just looked up about slushies, and it says not good for kids under 8. The sweetener can cause kids to go unconscious. Unconscious? If swallowed too fast or too much." Oh no. That is so weird. The sweetener in it? That's so, oh wow. I did not know that. Thank you, Sammy. Thank you so much for letting us know that, because yeah, if you have kids under 8, oh my goodness. I wonder how they found that out. Like, did a study of kids, how do you know that 8's a appropriate cutoff for that, Cornbread soup and beans, yes, yes, Rogue. Meganelle says, I'm pretty sure Candace knows all the illegal people who reside in the hills. Well, and we kind of find that out like as we go, right? Because I remember a lot of speculation on there or on that, but I know that there was like tons of it. I think there was like an overabundance of kind of um like the lifestyle that they lived kind of comes out, because here we see Candace kind of trying to act like she's just like a quiet mom, quiet country mom. I live on the same property as my mother, I take care of her. Don works, and we have our children, the boys and the boys in Summer. And she kind of paints that picture early on for Chris, but then it all kind of falls apart when they go into the environment that Summer went missing from, in my opinion. And we find out that there were parties and inappropriate behavior, really disturbing details. Hello, Miss Sharon. That's so cute. She says cornbread is weird to my Australian ears. That's funny. Okay, so yeah, it's really good stuff. It's really good stuff. Cornbread is. She and Donna cornbread mafia, in my opinion. Sea Star. I mean, they might be, or they might have traffic Summer, because there is a picture of Summer next to a barrel, and the barrel says for sale, and she's standing there in a little dress, and I have it in the video. You guys will see it in these clips. But yeah, little Miss Sharon, cornbread is so good. And it's basically like, just cornmeal, and it's like kind of like a cake in a way, I guess. You can make it all kinds of ways, though. You can make it into a muffin, but but yeah, they name themselves that. James says, and something I thought about and realized that I don't remember if CP had his Miranda rights told to him, because boy, oh boy, has been so many threats and a lot of bad things said. Surely will be. Yeah, I mean they've never arrested him, so I think that's the only time that they would Miranda, or excuse me, that's the only time that they do Mirandize you, is, you know, right before, or as I should say, as they're making the arrest. So, um, cornbread is delicious, Sea Star. And Mama Davis says, yes, I heard the interstate that runs through there is notorious for traffic. Yes. See, and that was kind of, I couldn't remember which highway that was, but yes, that was another thing that I was kind of going over in the research and things, because you find out that, there's like kind of main hubs that, people go through, and, certain areas that are high traffic for, different purposes. And then sometimes, so people will start out with just, something small, and then they go to things bigger, and next thing you know, because, and in human trafficking is one of the very, very, very bad, parts that we don't typically hear about a whole lot. I mean, we hear about it when there's a bust, and there was a bust not too long ago, in Tennessee. So thank God for that. But it's just something that happens all the time. It really does. Michelle says my granny used to put sweet cornbread with a little bit of buttermilk in it and eat it. Oh my gosh. Yeah, but she loved it. Yeah, I mean, I've even like made cornbread with like fruit and stuff like that. It's good. I love cornbread. It's awesome. Not a basement, a dungeon, Connie S. I mean, seriously. This poor little baby. And a dungeon of nasty, like, pervertedness, in my opinion. Hey, Detroit Rock City. And we're going to get into that more, guys. I just want to plan it and I want to present it in a good way to where, I'm going to be able to convey the message, but be careful with the wording because of, the different elements that we're going to discuss. So it'll be a later time that we do that. But there was a lot of things that poor little Summer had to endure, and I think that there was a lot of SA going on within the home. So now we all want cornbread now. God, yes, that's funny. Except for little Miss Sharon, she's like, "Dang it, what's cornbread?" You guys are so funny. Okay, so let's go ahead and watch this next clip. I think we're on, and I didn't write them down tonight. Okay, I think we're on number 3. So let's do number 3, and we will discuss what Candace has to say about Summer going missing.
Okay, so the smoke shop where you bought the
we went to the hospital,
right,
and picked up my mom,
right,
and then we stopped at the smoke shop, and I got mom that twisted tea that she wanted, and then I stopped at the hippie house and got me some smoked nicotine vapes, is what I got.
Okay, what flavor?
I think they were Skittles.
Okay.
Because that's kind of like.
Wait, do they have like a different flavor?
They actually taste like Skittles.
Okay.
It's the only kind I'll buy.
Okay.
And then we left from there, and we went straight down to Walgreens, and went to the drive-thru. But after we were done at the hippie house, I think we bought 3 of them, I think, I believe. And I set them right there on the console, and he asked for one, and I said, no, you can't have them.
Did he take one?
I don't know.
Okay.
Honest to God, I don't know.
Okay.
But then we went to the Walgreens and dropped off mom's prescription. I said, well, if we got to wait 30 minutes, why don't we just bring Summer down here and let her play for a little bit?
Okay.
And that's what we did.
Okay.
I mean, there was nothing. I honestly didn't see him drink nothing down here. I don't know what he's talking about. I really don't.
All right. So it's your word against his, basically.
Pretty much.
Okay. On this scenario right
Yes.
here. Okay, so from here, where do you guys go?
Walgreens to pick up my mom's prescription.
Okay, is that the Walgreens right down at the edge here?
Right straight across.
It's the one that I showed the other day that it's right down here?
Yeah, when we turned to come down here, it's right there on the corner.
Okay, and you get mom's prescription.
Yep.
Then what happens?
Then I told mom, I said, why don't we get a Sonic?
Okay.
Because it's hot out.
Right.
So we drove in there, got a Sonic.
Right across the street?
Yep, right across the street.
Okay.
And then we left from there, and I went up Moreland Drive because I had to pick up a few things. I was in the maybe the store for maybe 5 minutes.
Okay.
Grabbed some milk and some cheese, and I don't remember what else I bought.
Okay. And that's the foodless?
No, priceless.
Priceless. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And then I was like, Hunter, you're not coming to the house. I'm sorry to tell you, but you're going back to your house.
Okay.
And I took him back to his house and dropped him off and left. And Summer was still awake when I left his house.
Okay. Okay.
And Allie did never walk to the truck and try to talk to me or
Okay.
I tried to get her to come over and talk to me, but she wouldn't.
Okay. Where does from here when you left here, okay, and you went to Sonic, like you mentioned, what flavors do you buy? Do you remember?
I think I got me and Mom a grape.
Is that your favorite?
Not my mom.
Is that
Summer.
is that your
Summer got a
favorite?
grape. That's my favorite. I don't remember what Mom got. She got it's like a cool water or something like that.
Okay.
And then Hunter, I think, wanted the blue one. I think.
Okay. Is that the slushy?
Yeah.
Okay.
The slushies. I don't really.
Did you buy food?
Nope.
Just the slushies.
Just the slushies.
Okay. Then what happened?
And then we left from there, went to Priceless, and I wasn't even in there 5 minutes. Grabbed my milk, come right back out the door, and he was sitting there playing on TikTok like he always does.
Okay.
I mean, and then for him to sit there and say that he doesn't even make TikToks, I have on my phone personally, I can show you where he's made TikToks.
Okay.
Honest God.
I hope you've given it to the officials, right?
No, actually, it's still on my phone. I haven't had a chance because I was going to talk to them Tuesday when I went back to town.
Okay,
I got some business I got to take care of.
Got it. Roger that. So from there, you go back to Hunter's house.
I drop him off.
Explain the milk. The picture of
The milk, it was sitting right there beside Summer.
Okay.
Because when I handed it to Hunter in the car, he was on the outside.
Oh.
I said, Hunter, put this on the other side of Summer. I just set it over there.
Okay.
And she was wide awake sitting up.
Okay.
Like, she didn't go to sleep until after we left town.
Did she change clothes?
Yeah, I changed her clothes because when I have the windows down, it could be 100 degrees. I'll have all the windows up. Roll up the window, Mommy, I'm cold. And she not be cold, but I still do it.
Is that part of Summer's
That's
personality?
just Summer.
Tell me about Summer.
Tell you about
I want to know about Summer.
She's a happy little girl.
Okay.
She's the best little girl anybody could imagine. Just like, well, I don't really want to say her name.
Yeah, don't say her name.
But, you know, happy-go-lucky. Nothing ever brings her down hardly.
Mm-hmm. Today's a tough day for you, I can tell.
Yeah, it's really tough. It's been tough lately.
Tell me about that.
Well, every time I look around, I see her face.
Okay.
I don't know what else I can tell you.
Well, help me understand when you went home. Tell me about those dynamics that day. Take me back to that day. Yeah, on the way home.
On the way home, well, we were just sitting there talking, me and Mom, about everything pretty much. Trees, flowers, rocks. Whatever Mom likes, you know, pretty much we talk about. And I was like, what's Summer doing? She's like, oh, she fell asleep. I was like, oh, how's she sleeping? And when I look back, because I'm driving, and I look back like this, she had her arms up like this, like her daddy sleeps all the time.
Okay.
So I wanted to catch that moment.
Okay.
You know, it's just things I do.
Right.
And I was like, here, Mom, hurry up, take that picture. And then she accidentally hit the video record instead of the picture part.
Okay.
So I was like, did you catch it? She's like, F, no, I accidentally hit the video part.
That's what you get for handing Grandma the camera.
Yeah, well, I was driving though.
Okay.
And I was like, did you put her arm back down? She's like, yeah. I was like, dang. And then she got a picture of her, but by that time her arm was down. But her arm was up most of the time like this.
Right.
And we were like 2 minutes from the house when she took her arm down.
Okay.
And then when we got to the house, we unlocked the gate, went up, and I woke her up. She got up, I unbuckled her, she got out of the car.
I agree, Connie. Yes, I think that she does have a guilty conscience as well. And, you know, we talked about this before, too, in the first live that we did about, you know, the picture and how she was saying that Summer was sleeping with her arms up. And then all of a sudden, you know, her mom didn't get a chance to take the picture. But then we see this picture where her arms are clearly down, you know, in a different position. And Summer, Candace says that their day started out at the hospital, right? Again, they did buy the twisted tea, so thank you for that. They did buy the twisted tea for Grandis, and then Candace says she bought 3 Skittle flavored vapes from the hippie house. And she said she put the 3 vapes on the council. And she says that Hunter asked her if he could have one. And she said, no, that you can't have one. But she put them out in the, middle where he could get to them, right? And so to me, if you didn't want anybody to have them, you would put them in your purse or you would put them up. So that way, there was no way of Hunter being able to have one because he wasn't old enough to have one, right? He wasn't of age. And so she said, so Chris asks her, well, did Hunter have one of the vapes? And she said, oh, I don't know if he did or not. Well, you put him on the council so he can grab it. Don't lie. We already see this deviant behavior, right? I think, in my opinion, that she gave that child booze as well because they said, oh, it's your word against his. Well, I believe his word over her word because, it just seems like she was that type of a person leaving the vapes out for the child to grab, and I understand he wasn't a little teeny tiny child or anything like that. But either way, it's just behavior that's not acting as an adult. And we see that with, even Chris Proudfoot when he's showing that disgusting song to Sebastian and knowing it's inappropriate, but he's still, showing him inappropriate materials, just like Candace is giving this child inappropriate materials that he's not supposed to have and that are dangerous for him. Just like, in my opinion, showing Sebastian that song was dangerous for him. Exposing him to that disgusting song was not right and not something an adult does to a child. It's predatory behavior, in my opinion. So they go to Sonic. They do not buy any food at Sonic, right? So it's just the slushies, right? They all get a slushie at Sonic. Then they go to a grocery store called Price Less, and they buy milk, cheese, and they go and drop Hunter off. And Summer was still awake, according to Candace. She said that Hunter's mother, Allie, wouldn't talk to her, but she did ask her to. And then again, we have a conflicting story where Allie was saying that, that didn't happen. So, again, no food, just bought slushies. And Hunter was on TikTok on the ride home or before he got dropped off. She said that Hunter was claiming that he wasn't making TikToks, but she has proof on her phone, again, gross, that Hunter had made TikToks. And Chris says, well, did you, turn that into authorities? And she says, no, I'm going to do that on Tuesday because I got some business to take care of. And she does kind of a weird gesture when she talks about that. She also says that Summer went to sleep after they left town. And then Chris asks her how she's been feeling lately. And she said it's been rough lately, that she sees Summer's face every time she looks around. Which of course that is understandable for a mother who is missing her child, in my opinion, whose child vanished. But again, I just feel like there is a lot of information that Candace is offering up, but none of it is, anything that will help find Summer, in my opinion. Oh, Rufio Banning, good to see you, and thank you for being here. It says, please pray for my mom's son. She is missing out of Oklahoma, last seen by a family April 15th, last pinged in Texas, KSWO, Jefferson County, Oklahoma, Jessica Gleghorn. Okay, we will, Rufio Banning. If you want to email me at ladyfreedomsrawnarratives@gmail.com, I will post a picture and a description on my community wall for you. I'm so sorry to hear that, and I hope that they can find. Hey, Detroit Rock City. Oh, okay. So glycerol is what they put in the Slurpees to slow down the melting. It's very toxic for children, especially 10 and under. Most adults are able to process it. Wow, that makes me not even want to ever have a Slurpee though, for real. Because who wants all those chemicals? Thanks, Detroit Rock City. Michelle says, okay, the statement of every time she looks around, she sees her face sounds very past tense with zero emotion in her voice, and her eyes and body say regretful. Absolutely. I agree, Michelle. I mean, come on. It's like she doesn't say it with any type of like inflection in her voice whatsoever. It's just kind of like, and then she kind of says to Chris, like, what else do you want from me? I don't know what else to say, and we've also saw that kind of reaction with Katie, right? It's almost like there's such a major disconnect or no connection between mother and child to the point where there's absolutely no emotion in what they're trying to, and what they're trying to convey. My child is missing. I'm talking to you about my missing child, but there's zero emotion. So it even makes us less emotional, right? Because when we see a mother crying, looking for her child, we're like, oh my God. And we cry right along with her, right? But we can't do that with Candace and Katie a lot of the time because they're not showing any emotion themselves. And to me, it's detrimental for what they're trying to accomplish in spreading awareness in the word about their children, because they're showing us no emotion. So why should we be emotional about it, if that makes sense? But just that major disconnect, and I was talking to a friend today, and she's like, that Not the Mama show, and it's like, yeah, I remember that with the little, with the dinosaurs, and it's like, you get that Not the Mama vibe, but this time it's like the mom saying it to the kid, right? And James says the boys may not notice at the time when they got back because they're off playing their game system. And I have seen what happens when kids get into playing PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Yeah, they're like zoned into it, right? I agree, James, and maybe so. But we're going to hear about what the boys were doing when they got home. Because she says that they're doing multiple things, just kind of like how Katie was on the couch doing multiple things, studying, talking on the phone, falling asleep, but just hang in there. We'll get to that. And Rufio says, thank you. If you see any posts about her, please share. Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana pings. OSBI is looking for her and waiting for pings. Okay, wonderful, Rufio Banning. I'm so glad that they're on it, and we will do that. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Oh gosh, we're definitely praying that she's found. I'm glad that they're getting pings off of her phone. James Coover says they don't hear, see, or realize anything but what is on the TV screen and the game they love to play addictively. I agree, James. I exactly know what you're talking about, And Lil Miss Sharon says, James Cooper, Candace says one of the boys said Summer went downstairs to play with her toys. Yes, they surely did. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, Rufio Banning says, thank you, Mama Davis. We believe she was chasing casinos, caught up in the wrong crowd, maybe, was God-fearing and against drugs. She had been checking into sober livings, but just couldn't stay clean. I'm so sorry, Rufio. Oh, my Lord. Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Of course. Thank you. Yeah, I will share it. I will share her story. Thank you. Thank you, Megan Els. Thank you. Absolutely. Of course. Thank you for coming and letting us know. I meant God-fearing and against drugs when she was younger, but got caught up in the wrong crowd. Yeah, no, I completely understand that. Oh, man. Aw. She's kind of cold, as Connie S. Absolutely. Absolutely. Rufio Banning says we believe her mental condition was brought on induced by Ruggs. Yeah, but for the most part, she is clear-headed and aware. Okay, yeah, and hopefully they can get a hold of her, and see if everything's all right, and if she wants to get some help, because sometimes when you're with those people, you're just kind of going along with them. So, Oh. Thanks, Mama Davis. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Panda Bear's mom. Thank you so much. Devlin Tate, Lake Odessa, Michigan, last seen April 21st, 2025, age 18, height 6 foot, weight 170 pounds. If seen Lake Odessa, PD at 616-527-5737. Thanks, Panda Bear's mom. Aw, thank you, little Miss Sharon. Yeah, come on, guys in the bushes, go hit that like button. Come on, just to hit the like, No, I'm just kidding. Okay, guys, so let's watch this next clip. We are on, oh, I'm not keeping track of clips very well tonight. Okay, we're on number 4. Okay.
We went and grabbed the boys from the house to come help us with the groceries.
Yep.
Because I always have them come help me do something.
And now, who was home when you got home?
My 3 sons.
Okay. And how old's your oldest?
He'll be 13 in September.
Okay. So was he babysitting?
Well, technically they weren't really, they were watching TV and sleeping at the same time.
Okay.
And I was just going to run out for a second, and we never even planned, I didn't even plan for Hunter to even be with us that day at all.
Got it.
He just called and was like, want to come over for a second? I was like, yeah, I'll come over for a second, but I got to get right back to Mom. And that was all it was a quick second thing.
Got it.
And he's like, Mom, can I go with them? I'm like sitting there shaking my head like this, and I was like, I don't care. So I'm just like, okay, whatever.
Okay.
You know, I didn't even think nothing of it. You know what I'm saying? I always take them kids. Every time they call me and ask me, come get me, I always come get them because their mom don't do nothing with them.
Okay.
She just sits there.
That seems to be the difference between you and Allie. You guys have a difference in terms of what you say you do and what she says she does, right? There's always that. It seems to be a conflict.
Conflict somewhere.
Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead. Finish your
But
thought.
I'm always taking the kids like it was, I want to say like 3-4 months ago. I went over to Allie's and I asked Allie if she wanted her and the kids wanted to go up to, I want to call it Ducktown, because that's where we planned on going, was Ducktown. And she's like, no, I'm going to sleep, blah, blah, blah. We're like, all right. And Hunter's like, well, can I go? And Allie's like, yeah, go ahead. So we took him up to Ducktown with us and stuff and brought him back, and everything was fine. I thought we were good friends, but I guess she's trying to get back at me for some reason. I don't know.
Those are reasons that
they're beyond me.
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
And you know what? That's not for me, right? That's let the authorities figure that out. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
That's why I didn't really want to do an interview, because I'm not trying to fight this,
right.
or say something that I say. Right. I'm not into all that game.
I'm here to help find your daughter.
I want to find Summer. I don't even care about anybody else's bullcrap. I want to find my daughter.
I do too. Okay.
That's all this matters to me.
I totally agree. I totally agree that I'm on that same page with you. All these people, I'm sure, are on the exact same page as well. I think you know that, right?
Yeah.
So walk me through when you got home.
Okay.
You unload the grocery. What exactly is going down there?
Well, I bring my kids out, and we all unload the groceries, but we all go in my house first because we sort out my mom's groceries from her groceries.
Okay.
We always do.
Yeah.
And we did that, and Mom walked back across, and me and Summer were putting groceries away, and watching TV off and on, and just chilling with the boys, hanging out, and then we decided to do some laundry, because laundry, my kids, they got 80 pairs of pants, 80 pairs, each one of them.
Okay.
So, doing laundry at my house is like
a job, right?
It's a job.
Right. Do you have a bulldozer?
No. Sometimes I wish I did.
Okay.
No, that's just joking.
Got it. That's okay.
But
you're doing laundry.
Doing laundry and stuff, and kids are all sitting there watching TV, chilling. And I stepped down, and I noticed Mom was sitting on the step, and her step is like literally from here to that tree, from my doorstep.
Okay.
I can literally walk over and be right there.
Okay.
And she's like looking around, and I was like, what's your problem? She's like, we got to get these plants transplanted into bigger pots.
Okay.
And she's
now
like,
you're sitting on the front porch, or where you all?
No, I'm not sitting. I'm
Are you in the
standing.
house?
No. She's sitting on our camper step right there. And,
okay.
And the flowers are here on both sides.
Okay.
And I'm just standing there. We're just talking. And she's like, we got to get these transplanted. And I was like, right, well, she goes, well, we know the boys ain't going to help because they don't like to do flowers.
Yeah, well, boy does, right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was like, but I know someone that will. So I ran back in the house and I grabbed Summer. She was sitting in the kitchen playing with her little, what are them? Little short guys with the big eyeballs.
Okay.
And I was like, Summer, you want to plant flowers? Me and Grandma plant
Is that the
rocks.
LOL things? Are they?
No, they're not.
Like
She didn't really like LOLs.
Okay.
She didn't care for those. No, I don't know what they're called. They're all kinds of different characters, like different animals, but they got big eyes.
Okay.
She liked them, so I bought them for her. And she was sitting there, I was like, Summer, you want to do some flower planting and stuff? She jumped up faster than anybody I've seen jump up. She's like, pretty flowers? I was like, yeah, let's go over to Grandma's and plant flowers. Transplant is what we did. And so we did that, and I don't know, it took us a while. Probably 30, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, I don't know. We're not real fast people. We don't...
Okay. Your Tennessee time.
Yeah,
just sitting on a porch,
chilling.
Drinking some sweet tea and just...
I don't drink tea.
Okay, but chatting her around.
Yeah, just chatting pretty much. Me and Mom drink Mountain Dew.
Okay.
That's what we do. We drink Mountain Dew. Yep.
Okay, guys, so we hear Candace right now telling us about what happened when they get home. Now, I want to show you all this news clip that I found of Grandis and what she says transpired, right? But we're also going to hear from the news station. And this clip is going to be from 9 months into Summer's disappearance. So, but it really kind of contrasts really well with what Candace is saying, because she's saying, you know, when they got home, she was doing some laundry, the kids were watching TV and chilling. Her mom was, you know, in the camper sitting on her camper step, which is, you know, just feet away from their home, right across the way from their house, right on the same property. And her mother says that she needs to transplant some flowers. She says that Summer got really excited when they asked her to join them, and that she jumped up so fast, faster than anything, right, to go over there and help with the flowers. One thing I just want to bring up really quick too, Sebastian liked to garden with his grandmother, so for them to say boys don't like to garden, I beg to differ. Also, just want to put it into perspective that, you know, she tells Summer that they're going to plant some pretty flowers, but we find out something different from Grandis. So let's go ahead and watch.
Another story at 6. Day 2 in a planned search for missing 6-year-old Summer Wells is now over.
The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation said teams scaled previously identified points of interest in Hawkins County. The agency says much of the area where Summer disappeared requires extra time to search thoroughly. They say it's extremely steep and dangerous. News Channel 11's Ansley Daniels spoke with Hawkins County Sheriff Ronnie Lawson, the lead investigator in the case.
Yeah, Ansley, the sheriff told you today that Summer's family now currently is not cooperating with law enforcement?
That's exactly right, Josh and Sarah. He also told me that the family has attorneys. Now, he did tell me that he didn't want to speak any further on the matter, but I did have the chance to speak with Summer Wells' mother and grandmother at the home where she disappeared earlier today. And her grandmother told me that she wanted to address the sheriff's comments about them not cooperating, as well as whether or not they have an attorney. And this was the first time that we have spoken with her on camera since her granddaughter went missing.
Mr. Lawson stated that Candace and the whole family is lawyered up. I can't speak for Donnie, and I know Candace hasn't because she's told me she hasn't, and I have not. If law enforcement wants to talk to me, TBI wants to talk to me, they have my phone number. They know when I leave the state. They know when I'm here.
Summer Wells' grandmother, Candace Hare, says she hasn't spoken with law enforcement since December 13th.
They have not contacted me since the YouTubers were down here in the driveway, and we asked them about trespassing.
Summer's grandma was with her granddaughter all day on June 15th, the day she disappeared. She walked me through what they did that day and said she and Summer were repotting cactus plants outside of her camper And then
Summer come in and had a piece of peppermint, which is her favorite, and then she went in. She said, "Mama, I want to go play with the boys." Candy walked her back to the house, and she asked the boys to keep an eye on her, and that's the last time I seen her.
As the 9-month mark of when her granddaughter was reported missing approaches, she says the social media and online rumors have to stop.
If they want to help, that's great. But if they want to spread lies, that's a different story. Because that's all they're doing now is spreading lies. They're reaching and trying to figure out what lie can we spread now. And I'm tired of it.
Now, Summer's mother, Candace Bly, did not want to go on camera. However, she did write this statement for us on my notepad. You see it right there on your screen as well. It says, "I've never stopped talking to law enforcement. No, I have not lawyered up. I don't understand why this is being said. I can't speak for Dawn, and we are willing to do whatever to bring our daughter Summer home. Thanks for all the searchers." Now, she also did not want to address her new YouTube channel, Dr. Phil, or anything other than the comments by the sheriff made earlier today. However, she and her mother, Summer's grandmother, wanted me to reiterate how thankful they were for the searchers who are still out looking for Summer, as well as law enforcement for still keeping this investigation open and fresh.
And Summer, we got done, we washed our hands real quick, went in Grandma's house, and she asked Grandma for a piece of candy. She always does. Okay. And of course, Grandma gives it to her.
Sure.
And she wanted a piece of candy, so Grandma gave it to her. We were sitting there for about, I don't know, 5-10 minutes maybe at the most. And she goes, "Mom, I want to go back to the house with my brothers." I was like, "All right." So I got up and I walked her back across to where I could literally see her walking to my doorstep.
Okay.
And she
front door, back door?
No, it's, well, I don't know if you want to call it the front door or back door, because I don't really consist which way.
Which door is it? Yeah. In some of the pictures I see, it's there's a door around the bottom and the back.
Not the basement door. I call it the kitchen door, is what I call it.
Okay.
And she walked in there, and there's a scaffolding that we have for steps. The yellow and black scaffolding we have for steps. Okay. And I put my hand on the scaffolding. I said, "Boys, watch Summer. I'll be right back." And I had to go over and help Mom. She was still sitting over there. And I had to go in and get her knee brace and fix it for her because it was twisted and crap.
Okay.
It took me like 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not a time person. Never have been.
Okay.
And next thing I know, I said, "Mom, I'm going back over with the kids, chill and hang out, whatever." And I freaking asked her brothers, "Well, where'd your sister go?" She was just right here with you. "Oh, she wanted to go play with her toys downstairs, Mom." I said, "I think none of them, because that's where our room is. That's where her toys are."
Okay.
And after about a second, I didn't hear nothing down there. I was like, "You sure she went downstairs?" They're like, "Yeah, Mom, she went downstairs."
Okay.
And my boys do not lie to me. So I went around because my stairs, my husband calls it a bar, but it's not really a bar. I call it a mess. We built it over the staircase. I guess you could call it a bar, but it's not really a bar because we don't drink that much. So, but it was like where we put our TV stand and stuff like that. And I walked around because that's where the steps are hidden up underneath there. And I said, "Summer." And she didn't answer me. I said, "Summer, are you down there?" And she didn't answer me. So I ran down the stairs pretty much. I was freaking out. I was like, "Why is she not answering me?" And I looked I blew up. I went everywhere looking for her. So I couldn't find her nowhere.
Okay. Then what happened?
She was just gone.
All right. So she says she was just gone. And she said that to the news, in the news interview too. You know, she was just gone. Little Summer just, gone. Same thing with Grandis. Grandis says, the boys were supposed to be looking after her, and that's the last time I saw her, right? So the boys, according to Candace, were called over to help bring in groceries. But according to Candace, the only groceries that she got from the store was cheese and milk. So what groceries did the boys bring in? Right? So she says that, the boys were watching TV and they were sleeping. Well, we all know that you can't watch TV and sleep, right? There's even times where maybe you have your eyes closed, right? And you're listening to the TV, but you can't do both at the same time. Just like it would be very difficult to study and be on the phone, like with what Katie was telling us, right? So just very, very inconsistent statements, and again, doesn't make any sense. Thank you, Connie S. So but yeah, she says that the boys took the groceries in. They were called to help. Anybody knows we could carry that one milk by ourselves, right? So then we have Allie, right? So Candace brings Allie back up, kind of saying that she's not, the same kind of mother, or doesn't have the same kind of parenting style as she does. She said that she kind of likes to, just lay around and do nothing. And she really wants to, take the kids places and different things. And so she does take the kids places and invites Hunter along because, Allie doesn't do those kinds of things. But, I feel a little bit of projection on Candace's part because, she did leave her other 3 kids at home and then went and picked Hunter up, right? Even though she does state that Hunter called her and asked her to come over, and then he asked to come along once they were there. Hey, Carla, good to see you. Oh, Meg says, lady, is this the interview room channel? No, it is. Oh, actually, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Sorry, Chris McDonough's channel. Yes. Sorry. Sometimes I get them mixed up, but yes, it is. And I will link the channel description in my I will link the channel in my description. That way you guys can go over and watch, because there are several. Like I said, I think there's like 4 or 5 parts to this kind of analysis, right? And interviewing with Chris McDonough. And I remember watching, I think, 3 of them. I thought I watched them all, and then I realized there were more today, while I was thinking back. So I feel like she was kind of projecting and kind of being like, well, I'm a better mom than Allie, kind of a thing, and maybe that's because they don't get along or something like that as well. We also see that she blames, kind of blames others that she's not doing interviews and spreading awareness through those interviews, right? So it's almost like she's like, well, this is the reason why I don't do interviews, is because, of all of the crap that I'm getting and that sort of thing. And in reality, I don't really think that's what it is. I think it's more or less that she doesn't want to, have to answer for what happened to Summer that day, because, I mean, let's be honest, she was with her last, right? And she went missing out of her own home. So either way, she says, she was doing laundry, the kids were chilling, her mom, lives in the camper, right, outside the door. Her mom's door is not very far away. And so she was talking to her mom, and her mom says, we need to transplant these flowers. Summer jumps up to help when asked, and they did that. Now, we go into what Grandis says, and Grandis says they were transplanting cactus plants, not flowers, right? And then she talks about how she asked the boys to watch Summer, and then that was the last time she saw her, right? And this is the 9-month mark that Grandis is talking about this. Now, Ronnie Lawson, he is the head investigator, right? And he is telling the public that the Wells, or, Candace and Don, are not cooperating anymore with law enforcement. So that's the 9-month mark. And they have lawyered up, which, to my knowledge, is about the same time frame that Chris and Katie did the same thing. They kind of stopped cooperating with law enforcement and allegedly lawyered up, in my opinion. So again, very similar when we look at the time frame of events and kind of history repeating itself, in my opinion. Now, Candace refused to go on camera, again, another thing that Katie refuses to do. She goes MIA and she says, I'm not going on camera. But she does write a statement out for the news anchor, right? She says, and she denies everything that the police had said. So she is calling Ronnie Lawson a liar. And she says, I've never stopped talking to law enforcement and I didn't lawyer up. And even when they interviewed Grandis about this, she says, I believe, Candace, that she didn't lawyer up. And she also says that there is no lawyer, right? So again, conflicting stories. But she also has a new YouTube channel at this point. So this is about the time that Candace has started her YouTube channel. And I have not gone over and looked at her YouTube channel, just, full transparency. But nevertheless, this is about the time that she has started that, the 9-month mark. She, like Katie, also refuses, to talk to the public, but she also thanks the public for helping spread awareness and searching, right? So again, very similar. Now, Candace also states, which matches up with her mother Grandis's story, right? Where she says that there was a piece of candy given by Grandma to Summer, and then Summer requests to go inside with her brothers. And then Candace says after she walked Summer over to the house, she went back over to her mother's and she's helping her with a knee brace. And she says that takes about 2 to 5 minutes. But again, she admits that she's not good with time. Or she is being manipulative and saying that so that way she's not held to a certain standard to give us a time frame. Because remember, we can't ask her that because she's not good with time. So, that's kind of off limits, right? Summer wanted to play with her toys. And so she went down to the basement, according to the boys, right? So when when Candace goes back into the house and she says, where's Summer? The boys are like, oh, she went downstairs to the playroom and her room to play with her toys. But as Connie said, it's more like a dungeon, than a basement. But it is like a basement where they have to go downstairs to get to it. There's also an exterior door that leads to the outside as well, down in that basement area. But we'll kind of get to that a little bit later on, and quite even possibly tomorrow when we see the layout of the home. Now, Summer goes down the... Oh, and another thing I wanted to know and let you guys know, if you don't know it already, that the basement is also where Candace and Don's room is located. So the boys are upstairs and little Summer and the parents are downstairs, which is very odd to me. So Candace states that she calls down to Summer and that Summer didn't answer. And so she looks all over, but Summer was just gone. Poof. She just disappeared, right? She vanished into thin air. She went down the stairs and it was like freaking Chronicles of Narnia. And Wait What says, CW, were you pregnant during that time? Oh, sorry guys. Hey, Wait What? Interview room. Thank you. Thanks, Meg. Thank you. Hey, Susan, hey, Suzanne. Suzanne says, yes, if a certain someone finds out, she'll be after it. Sorry, guys, I might have missed another comment there. Hey, Lady for Justice. Good to see you. Thanks for coming in to say hello. The dungeon, exactly, Connie S. And you guys are going to see it. It is a very wacky setup, right? Like something that you wouldn't expect. I remember watching the first time, and we'll get into it tomorrow night, but I remember watching it for the first time and thinking to myself, what in the world? And I couldn't imagine Chris McDonough and his dismay of what he was having to kind of, navigate to get down to this room. The stairs are, as described, underneath kind of an island or bar area, and then there's stairs going down. it's very creepy, very odd and dungeon-like. You know, absolutely. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to this next clip that we have here. Make sure. I'm getting confused with my clips tonight, and I don't know why. Okay, here we go.
She was just gone into nowhere. And I started tracing the property, going everywhere I could. I sent my boys down through the, well, we live on the hill, so it was down by the creek. Okay. I sent them all down through there looking and everything. I said, still didn't find her? And they said no. So I ran over and I freaked out. I called Donnie because that's what I do automatically. I freak out, you know.
You called Don?
I called Donnie. I said, I cannot find Summer. Come home now. He's like, call the cops. So I threw my phone down on the back of his pickup, ran over to my mom, picked up her phone because the only one that gets out there is AT&T.
Okay.
So I picked up her phone, I dialed her. I said, I cannot find my daughter. And they sent people out, and I wasn't just going to stand there and wait for them to send people out.
Right.
I jumped in my mom's truck and I went down the driveway as fast as I could. I went everywhere I could possibly think, every road which way. I didn't see no cars, I didn't see nobody at all. And I was like flipping out. I was a hot mess, as you call it.
Okay.
It makes no sense. The only thing that can come to my mind is that somebody snuck up there in that yard and took my baby girl.
What are the odds of that?
What are the odds of that?
From your perspective?
It happens all the time, all the way around the world.
I'm not questioning that it happens. I'm just asking you from your perspective, in your property, living up there as long as you have, Candace, right? What are the odds that happened?
I don't know.
Take a guess.
50-50.
Okay. What would be the 50% that it didn't happen? What are the other possibilities?
I have no idea.
Okay. Could she have walked away and fallen?
Knowing my daughter?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Okay.
No.
Okay. What's in your heart today in terms of what gives you hope and what do you hold on to? I mean, you've been around the block a couple of weekends, okay? I mean, so have I. And I think what you're telling me here, I have no reason to disagree with you. You know what I mean? I mean, there's going to be a lot of he said, she said, and you know, and I know, no matter what, okay? No matter what,
In my heart, I believe, now this is just the way I feel.
I respect that. Totally respect that.
I feel that somebody has got her hid out somewhere.
Okay.
And is keeping her away from us.
Help me understand why that's in your heart.
Okay, first off, I didn't know how many sex offenders lived around me that were only 8 minutes from my property.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Right.
And another, my daughter never goes out into the woods because we've taught her there's dangerous snakes, there's bears, there's pack of dogs, there's coyotes, there's everything magical out there in the woods that could hurt you.
Okay.
I've even taught my boys that.
Okay.
And I have never stressed that enough. I tell her that every day.
Right.
And she would never ever go anywhere than that swing that's on that tree.
Okay. Yeah, tell me about that swing. Is that her favorite? I love those videos you put up showing her just having an absolute blast. That's a blast. What about this call allegedly that Hunter says came in? Well, he said there was a call that Dawn made to you while you were in line at the prescription. Did that happen?
He called me and asked how everything was going.
Okay.
And how soon we were going to be home.
Okay. Hunter relates that he mentioned to you that Dawn had said something about somebody around the property. Is that true?
That is so bullshit.
Okay.
Sorry to say, but that's a bunch of bullshit.
Okay. All right. Okay. So where is?
I don't need to get upset, but when something
you're
like that.
Here's the good news. Okay. This is your daughter.
I know where my husband was.
Okay. But you have every reason. Don't apologize. No, I'm just. Okay. Don't apologize.
Me so mad that.
I mean, the fact that you're wearing mom patrol.
That somebody could stand there and lie.
People lie.
To law enforcement, to everybody. It just. it makes me so mad that it just makes my blood boil.
Right. So she disappears.
I don't know what else to say.
What are the possibilities in your mind? I know what your heart's saying. Your heart's saying she's with somebody right now. How would we know how to connect that dot? You and me.
Well, like, for instance, that Dobbs guy that was supposed to be camping across at my neighbor's house.
Right.
He was there that same time, and then Tony Hammonds, whoever the hell he is, he was down through there.
Who was there when you got home?
There was nobody there. There was my mom mentioned the blue van across at my neighbor's house, but I just figured she had company.
Okay.
I didn't know about that was the guy that was trying to move in there. I didn't know that at the time.
Okay.
Okay, guys, so Candace says that no one was around in the neighborhood except for possibly a guy in a blue van that was, belonged to the neighbors or that was visiting with the neighbors. Now, another similarity that we see with the Sebastian Rogers case here right off the bat is that Candace called Don first, right? So she calls Don first, just like Katie. The first thing she did was call her husband. She didn't call the authorities, right? But then, just like Chris Proudfoot told Katie, we need to call the police, so does Don Wells. He says, call 911. They always say two heads are better than one, but come on. So she used Grandis's phone to call 911. So Candace finally calls 911, right? But she uses Grandis's phone to do it. And then Candace says someone snuck up there and took Summer when asked about her theories. And Chris looks at her and he says, well, what are the odds of that happening? Just take a wild guess. What do you think the odds are, right? And she says, well, I think it's about 50-50. But she never says another possibility. So if it's 50-50, then what's the other 50, right? Because it's half and half, right? It's a coin toss. It's either heads or tails. So what's your other theory if it's 50-50? Now, if she would have said, I 100% think that somebody took Summer, came up, snuck around, and grabbed her up and left before we could see what had happened, which arguably the way that their house is situated, I don't think that is a very strong possibility, in my opinion. And also, we don't know what other possibilities that Candace would entertain or what that other 50% would be. Now, Chris tells Candace basically to cut the shit, in a very nice way. He's basically telling her, like, okay, come on. Almost like when Nancy Grace tells Chris and Katie Proudfoot to cut the shit, right? Because Katie tries to dodge the question about what her theories are as well. And Nancy Grace isn't having it, right? She's like, your theories, tell me your theories, right? I love that. So then we also have Hunter, who said that he alerted Candace to someone else being around the property. And Candace gets upset about that, right? This is the first time we see Candace really showing any emotion. She's like, no, that didn't happen. And that really upsets me because I'm sick and tired of this and da-da-da-da-da, right? And she kind of goes off. But, we got a rise out of Candace. It's like, whoa, that triggered her, right? Because it seems like her story isn't what Hunter is saying, and it seems to be annoying her, if anything. Hey, Salty Gigi, good to see you. So, let's see here. Sorry, my notes are a little sloppy. Oh, okay. We also hear Candace say that she thinks someone has her, right? After Chris says, cut the shit, what's the other 50, right? And she says, I think someone has her and they're keeping her someplace. And then she said, I wasn't aware of how many SOs were actually like living around me. And that's why I think that, right? And so, she says that there's a lot of them by her property. Now, she also says that Summer and the boys know that they should not go into the woods by themselves, and that she's told them many, many times about like bears and lions and tigers and bears, oh my, that could get them in the woods, right? And don't go out there because there's snakes and different things, right? And it's dangerous. And a lot of the terrain around the Tennessee area, we know, is very rocky and rough and steep and things like that. So she said that she would always stress to them, never go out there by yourselves. Well, Summer also, it said, would never go past her swing, right? And so that was like, her little boundary, according to Candace, is that she wouldn't go past her swing. She knows better, and she knows there's dangerous, there's dangers in the woods. Now, Candace lies for Don, and she says, I know where my husband was, right? But we find out later, and it's just kind of a spoiler alert, but I just wanted to throw it out there because I just wanted to point that lie out, that Candace lied for Don, right? Because we find out later, and Don admits himself that he was not in fact at work that day, right? So, but she's like, instead of saying like, I know he was at work, she kind of lies by omission, right? And she says, I know where my husband was, right? So that way she doesn't really have to lie, but she is lying. But yeah, he wasn't at work like he claimed to be at work, right? And it always just begs the question, why lie about it? Why lie about it? Hey Denise, good to see you. Thanks for coming in. And Suzanne says, we know what he did to his stepsisters, then tried to tell two older children. Can you imagine what Summer went through? And guys, we're going to get into it because, it's something that I think needs to be discussed in this case, because it's just so awful to think some of the inappropriate activities that were going on, and then this child goes missing, and, she's standing by a barrel that says for sale. I mean, it just kind of screams guilt, in my opinion. Vic says, thud and a scream, poof, both just disappeared. Exactly, Vic. James Cooper says, I thought it was red and that someone had passed it on the way to the hill. Oh, okay, a red vehicle instead of a blue one. Suzanne says, I wonder if Edgar had to talk with DW. I don't know. I'm wondering too. I think he definitely watched and went by the playbook, right? Because I say the Don and Candace playbook, and it might even be the Candace and Don playbook. I mean, that's another thing that's very similar to me. It's kind of hard at this juncture for me to get a proper read on Don or Candace and who may or may not be the ringleader, or if they're both in it just as heavy as the other one, right? Like thick as thieves, if you will. But it does seem like there are so many similarities, even down to what they're saying. Now, is that because they're both guilty? Possibly. Is that because they're both missing a child and they're going to have these similarities? Possibly. But I think it's something really interesting to explore, and I think we need to, especially because neither one of these children have been found yet, right? And they both went missing out of their own homes, like Vic said, poof. And we don't poof, right? And C-Star says, look how they are both looking chin up. Interesting, KK and Candace. Yes, absolutely. And I caught this little number here. Candace is doing one of these like Katie did, like the cutthroat gesture, like done and over with. It's James says, well, the Proudfoots say they called three-way, which in my opinion is doubtful. And Don tells Candace to make the call. Yeah, but I mean, even so, James, you're very right. I do believe that they were on a three-way call, according to Chris, is what he said, right? But I think it's very interesting how both mothers call their husbands, right? And the husbands are the ones that tell them to call the police, right? Like the husbands are the ones that suggest that they call the police. And it's very odd to me, right? Because it's like, you guys couldn't think of that yourselves, and your mothers, and you're the ones that are supposed to be teaching your children how to protect themselves and what to do in an emergency, and you can't think for yourself to call 911. You have to call your husband first and have him tell you to do it. It's just kind of mind-boggling to me. And also just another similarity. Stoic is a really good word. C-Star, thank you. Stoic, for sure. Until Hunter says something that isn't true, right? Because she did get a little bit excited about the whole thing with Hunter, saying, I didn't see him drinking anything down here. But I mean, if she's willing to give him a vape, I wonder if she's willing to give him alcohol too, Yeah, they didn't call 911, Susan. That's a great point. Suzanne, excuse me. Suzanne, they didn't call 911. They called the sheriff's department, right? They called the central dispatch because, 911 would have routed them different places, according to Mr. Proudfoot. Don also, Mama Davis, that's a great point. And I showed that in the last live that, and I will link that, guys, in the description to the last video that we did, because you're absolutely right, Mama Davis. Don also admitted that he too called 911. So Candace called, and then so did Don. Thank you so much, Mama Davis, for that reminder. I don't know how they could live the good life, but it seems like they're trying to live their best lives, which is sad. It's really sad. James Cooper says, of course, they didn't have the connections like CP and KP do in LE. Well, and that's another great point, James. And that's another thing I want to explore, right? Because, Chris and Katie are, military, right? They're both Navy. They know a lot of people and are well connected, and so is Chris's family, in my opinion, right? Katie kind of doesn't have the family support system that, say, Candace does, because Candace is very much, and I think that's how, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, because I never called Grandis before. I never heard of that until I started deep diving with others and kind of collaborating on this project. But I will say that, I think that's probably why they call her Grandis, is because, Candace is like constantly referring back to mom, and that's kind of her like safe place, right? Where she could be like, oh, I'm just all about my mom, and I take care of her. I was fixing her brace, I was helping her repot her plants. She lives right by me. We're super close, and, again, kind of thick as thieves. So it seems like maybe they would, do anything. But then we also see that on Chris Proudfoot's side, where we have the mother enabler, right? Who is there, who is using excuses, who has gotten Chris out of trouble, in my opinion, allegedly. So absolutely. But we see how they're treated completely differently, right? Because Chris still gets to see Faith, right? As of right now, he's still going to be seeing Faith as per the parenting plan. So vastly different, right? It's okay if Chris is drinking all the time. It's not like they're going to arrest him for that, which they shouldn't really. It's legal, unless you're driving. Obviously, that's not okay. But nevertheless, it's, it's just, it's a big difference. It's a stark difference, right? Between how somebody's treated when they have money and how somebody's treated when they don't. I mean, it's just how it is, Why lie? Salty Gigi says. Yeah, why lie? And she gets caught in a lot of little silly lies, Salty Gigi, and I don't understand why. It's really strange, Meg, I don't know where he claims he was instead of being at work. I'm pretty sure he was at the house, though. I'm pretty sure that's what was found out. Good night, Connie. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Thank you. The sheriff's own son is an SO. Very true, Meow. Very true. Yes, yes. And that is, another thing that is very fishy about this case. Another, like, kind of oddity, right? Another strange connection. Thank you, little Miss Sharon. Thank you. Aw. True, but heard that a long time ago. Let me see. Very different lives, but the similarities are so obvious. Absolutely. So many, right? Even down to their statements. Even watching the Dr. Phil, oh my gosh, it's amazing. It's just amazing. But I wanted to start with Chris McDonough because he does an excellent job, right? So this is his first video in a series. So he's bringing us to the place that they were right before, right? So in Sebastian's case, that we would be going over the day's events, and we have at length, right? The beginning, breakfast, spaghetti pancakes, going and picking people up, right? Going to BJ's, parting ways from them, going home for a little while, to the arcade, to the Texas Roadhouse, right? So that's what we're kind of doing here. With Summer, it was like, okay, we're taking Grandis to get to we're taking Grandis to the hospital. We're waiting on her. We get a call from Hunter. We go over there. We end up going to the, pick up, some twisted tea, some Slurpees, some vapes, possibly more alcohol, in my opinion, if that's what Hunter's saying that he was drinking while he was down there. And then they head down to, the state park where they're going to go swimming for a little while. They stop off at the grocery store. They grab milk and cheese, according to Candace. According to this story, it may change later, knowing Candace. But nevertheless, they get these groceries, they go home, and all of a sudden, poof, Summer's gone, right? So, and also I find it weird too. I don't know the exact time that Summer was reported missing, but 6:30 p.m. and 6:30 a.m., give or take, right? So again, when people call Sebastian Rogers' case Summer 2.0, I would have to agree, because of all of these similarities. So many, C-Star. So many. It's a family affair. Yeah, Vic, I agree. I wonder if the boys know anything. Maybe someday they will speak up. Yeah, Detroit. And, I did have conversations about that with others, just wondering, because the boys were taken, they were placed in different homes, right? The oldest child probably normalized a lot of the behavior, in my opinion, because of course they were in the trauma the longest. So I don't know if we will see anything on that end of things. I don't know. I pray that for clarity for that young man. But maybe the middle son, maybe the littlest one, hopefully doesn't remember a lot, because I think that those children endured a lot, and I think they were exposed to very disgusting and vile people, so Mama Davis says, in my opinion, CP would not go on Dr. Phil. I don't think they would either. I do not think they would go on Dr. Phil. I think that's the part of the one play that they're not going to follow through with. But the America's Most Wanted now, yes, C-Star is next week. Yes, on the 28th. So, definitely keep a lookout for that. I'm excited for it. I think that it'll be so wonderful to get Sebastian that much exposure on such a huge platform. America's Most Wanted has found so many fugitives, and Sebastian's, of course, is not a fugitive, but he is wanted. He is wanted to be found, right? We want him to be found, and he was also, like many of us know, listed on the FBI's most wanted list. So when the FBI got involved and put up the $50,000 reward, so there's that. But let's go on and oh, thank you, Panda Bear's mom. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. April 28th. Thanks, Suzanne. Thank you, thank you. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Okay, so let's go on to this next clip.
And so I didn't think nothing. I just figured it was neighbors. I had visitors.
Okay.
You know, I didn't think nothing about that. I gotta stop. I can't do no more. I gotta have a cigarette. Sorry.
No, go light it up.
I just don't.
Light it up, girl.
I don't want to breathe in.
No. Go blow it. Go. I'm not gonna. Don't worry about me. You should see me drive. I'm a mess when I drive.
I can't drive like I can.
You got a lot going on, Candace. I respect you. I'm sorry that you're having all this problem. And no matter what we say, you or me, somebody's going to question
It
it.
doesn't matter what I say or do or try to prove to people. Somebody's always going to twist my stuff.
Right.
And for that one woman to go on there that works with Allie, she don't know me and my kids. She don't know what they do every day. Most of my boys were here. They tell you.
I've seen a lot of your pictures.
Yeah.
That speaks volumes. You know what I mean? That speaks a lot. That says a lot. Nobody's perfect though, right?
No, I'm not perfect.
I'm not perfect by any means, shape, or thought.
Never have been perfect. Never meant to try to be perfect.
And me neither. I mean, you.
I am a person just like you.
Yep.
Or your wife.
That's right.
That person out there on that jet ski.
That's right.
I'm no different than anybody else.
We all make mistakes. There's no question about that. No question about it.
I can't even enjoy life without my kids.
Help me understand what you mean by that.
Like how these guys are out here having fun with their family and stuff. I can't even go in that water and pretend to even have fun because what's the point? She's not here to enjoy it with.
You know, I lost a son.
Yeah, you were saying that.
I know that whole. I know there's a depth of pain that nobody understands until you have been in that hole. Okay? And
you know, I've been in this hole twice now.
Help me understand that.
Well, once when my mom called me and said that they couldn't find my little sister Rosie.
Okay.
When she disappeared. And that was heartbreaking. But my daughter, that's twice as worse.
Right.
You might as well just rip my chest out, throw it out there for the fish to eat because it's worthless without her. I try to be strong for my boys. I try to have hope. I feel like everybody is against me.
It's all right. You wanna rest for a minute? You wanna take a break for a second?
Yes.
Yeah. Take your time. Nobody else is here. They're all gone. Everybody left. You know, the world today is so different than it used to be even 10 years ago because of, the people can get on, this little device and say, he's lying, she's lying, he's this, that, and they do it about me too. You're right. It's just so out of control almost.
I've really never seen so much hate in my life until now.
I believe it.
Honestly.
I believe it. I believe it. Because I think everybody wants to help, but they don't know how to help. So when they hear indiscrepancies, okay, automatically that take, what is that?
A bee.
Oh man, don't get stung on me now. You'll be blaming me for a bee sting. But they don't know how to help, or they want to help, and then of course there's one discrepancy on YouTube or wherever, and next thing you know it just gets crazy. I mean, I've had people say, oh, you paid Hunter to talk to him. Seriously? Am I paying you? No.
I don't want your money.
And I wouldn't offer it. Okay.
I don't want nobody's money.
I'm not here for that.
My daughter.
I'm here for that reason. That's why I'm here.
Okay, guys. So, Chris just comes off to me as such a warm, compassionate, loving person. And, he just told her, he said, I'm here to help you find Summer. I'm not going to try to pay you for an interview. I didn't pay Hunter for an interview, but, people make things up online. And he talks about how the world is very different because of technology, and that people can, spread lies more easily. Just kind of, with the click of a couple of thumbs and, send that out there for everybody. They can spread lies. And he says that it's gotten out of control. Candace, says from her experience, she's never seen so much hate before, and I believe her when she says that, and I think it was very kind of Chris to offer her, that level of compassion and respect that he did. What a guy, really. So, and Candace was very polite with him. She says, I need a cigarette. She's getting worked up, right? We talked about that before. She's getting worked up, and she says that, I need to smoke. And Chris is like, go ahead and smoke, and she's like, well, I don't want to blow it in your face or anything. And he's like, no, it's okay, and he's very, again, compassionate and kind to Candace. Says, look, I respect you. I know you're going through a lot. I appreciate you taking the time with me, kind of a thing. And he also shares how people have been to him as well. Again, saying that he pays people for interviews, and people will say things like that, because I think that's where the jealousy and the envy comes in, where, oh, so if, you're talking to, you'll talk to Chris, but you wouldn't talk to me, kind of a thing. Or, and we see that in Sebastian Rogers' case as well, so, but Chris was also very delicate with Candace in explaining, when people see these discrepancies, it can really cause a big, deal when shown on YouTube and things like that, so he's kind of trying to explain to her, like, look, the reason why people are getting angry is because obviously they care, they want to help, they don't know really how to help sometimes, but it's out of frustration too, because they see these discrepancies. And we've gone over this tonight, and I've shown kind of some frustration, some sarcasm, because I feel that many times, or I should say, I think, and I've seen throughout this interview, which helped me form my opinion, that Candace has lied several times about very minute details that have nothing to do with Summer, but she's also spoken very little about Summer and what could have happened to her. Because I'm sorry, but as a mother, I think I would be standing out there looking at the last place I had a beautiful day with my daughter out swimming, and I might just think to myself, God, where is she? I would be beside myself. We don't see Candace cry yet, though. We don't see her cry yet. And as a matter of fact, when we do see Candace cry and get upset, it's when she talks about how much people have been hating her or bashing her, or how much people don't like her. And unfortunately, that's the first time that we see Candace cry in this interview. But let's back up a little bit. So she says that Allie, the coworker, doesn't know her or her kids. She said if the boys were here that they would tell you. So she's trying to convince Chris of something, and I'm not sure what was said, by the way. So if you guys can help me out, I would appreciate it. But something that Allie's coworker, who is Hunter's mother's coworker, had said something about Candace that Candace didn't agree with and that she found to be untrue. And she's trying to convince Chris that, like, this lady doesn't know me, but she's saying these things. And if my sons were here, that they would tell you differently, right? They would agree with me. Chris again goes into the fact that we all make mistakes, right? And he's so right. None of us are perfect. And really, it's not really even up to us to judge. And I think that's what he was kind of trying to let her know. Like, look, I'm not trying to be judgmental, or I'm not judging you. I just really, hey, lady, I just really appreciate, you talking with me and letting me know. And, we all make mistakes. Nobody's perfect. And I think that was very nice of him. And, another way for him to get her to open up a little bit to and understand, like, look, we're just trying to find Summer here. I'm just trying to find out information. And that's why I'm asking you questions, kind of a thing. And it's also, with Chris losing a child, and I don't know if he, I don't know the circumstances, but I think, there's kind of like a special club, in that regard, because he says, no one knows the depth of pain until you've been in the hole, right? Until you've been in that hole where you lost a child, and he shares that with her, and I think he's also trying to ease some guilt that she may be feeling, as well as a parent to parent, saying, we all make mistakes, trying to get her to open up about maybe what happened. Maybe there was a mistake, maybe it wasn't something that was pre-planned, or, maybe there was no ill intent. So again, she said that, she feels like she can't have any fun without her kids. But then she goes, I can't pretend to have fun. Summer's not here to enjoy it with, right? So she's not here to enjoy it with, talking about Summer. But she doesn't even mention the boys who were just taken, by CPS previously. She just goes right back to Summer. So I did want to point that out. Now, when Chris shares about his loss, we have Candace saying, well, I've had to endure that depth of pain and loss, and I've been in that hole twice. Once with my sister Rosie, and now with Summer. She says it's heartbreaking. She says, you might as well just take my heart and rip it out and throw it in the water and, let the fish eat it, basically. So that's how, badly she's feeling. But again, we don't see her cry yet. She starts talking about how she has to be strong for the boys. And then when she says, I feel like everyone is against me, that's when she started crying. But at no point did she cry for Summer, or where she could be, if she's getting fed properly, if the person that because her first theory is that somebody came and took her from the yard, from their property. She's not talking about how she's, worried that Summer is, being mistreated by the person who took her, by her abductor, who, many times, or more often than not, statistically, children who are taken by someone, it's by someone that is meaning them harm and not good, right? SO, foul play of some sort, trafficking again. So, nothing good can come of it. It's not like somebody's going to go snatch a child up, and give them the best life in the world, right? It's not like you're going to end up with a millionaire that never had a kid and they just want to have a kid. That's not what we typically see, right? Maybe if somebody steals a baby from the hospital, I've seen a couple of stories about that. But Little Miss Sharon says, well, the one woman saw you polish your children on hot cement. So cruel. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, two cases The parents are sick in the head. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Hey, Betty H. Betty H says Candace is telling where Summer is at the way she's looking at that water. Yeah, that thought definitely occurred to me, Betty H. I will say that when I was watching this interview, that thought definitely crossed my mind, and I thought, well, it seems like she knows where Summer is. It seems like maybe something happened there. Um, absolutely. Thank you for your comment. Little Miss Sharon says she just brushes off Chris talking about his son. She does. It's not like she says, I'm so sorry for your loss or anything like that. I agree. That's a great catch, Little Miss Sharon. Suzanne says, Betty, she also said things were going slow in her head as they were walking to the water. Yes, she did. She said everything's going in slow motion right now. Wow. Great catch, Suzanne. Great catch. I do remember that. Yeah, everything's in slow motion right now. And Chris is like, okay, and he's really calm, right? Yeah, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Yeah, because the slow-mo to the water, that would, when we think about, and and some of you may have had like a flashlight, blah, blah, not a flashlight, a flashback before, right? So sometimes it comes really quickly, but then other times it's kind of a slow thing too. It just depends on kind of what type of flashbacks you have, right? And it could be like a slow feeling of a slow motion. It just depends on the person and how they feel. We all feel different things different times, right? But absolutely, Suzanne, that's a great catch, because when they're walking up to the water, it makes you wonder if something happened while they were there, you know. And then also keep in mind, they allegedly went to a couple of different places before they went home, but again, maybe they were trying to figure out what they were going to be doing, so that's why she just quick ran and got, a gallon of milk and some cheese, or you know what I mean? Because most of the activities that they did was before, and they also dropped Hunter off at home before they went home. He didn't go back to the house with them, Lainey says, I'm biased from my own personal experience, but the way she was describing how nothing matters without your child, I don't know if I would feel that in a missing case, but that's 100% how I felt grieving a child. Oh, Lainey. Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us and your experience. I'm so sorry. And we all do different, like I said, we all feel differently when going through any type of traumatic situation, like especially something like that. But I don't know how I would feel either, but I definitely did think that was like a heartfelt kind of connection as well. Like she really couldn't have fun without Summer being there. And she didn't mention her other three boys who were still, well, let me phrase it like this. Allegedly, in my opinion, she didn't mention the other three boys who were still alive to her knowledge. She mentioned Summer as if she wasn't alive. So I think what you just said was really poignant, and I appreciate your personal experience, because I think that is some of the best ways that we come up with, solid theories, in my opinion, because you're right. Like, you lost your child, right? And so you 100% felt that way. But she doesn't mention the boys like that. She just says, when Chris says, hey, can you elaborate on that? How it makes you feel and stuff. What do you mean by that? And she goes into like, oh, see the family stuff, but she doesn't say, Don and I can't be here with all of our kids. She only mentioned Summer. Wow. See, and the mom brains need to unite in these cases, because we're dealing with moms that lost their children, Thank you so much. That is awesome. What you said was so awesome and helpful because of your experience. So, thank you. And Vic says, trauma Things slowed down for me at my son's funeral. Yeah, something wrong with your reality slows down. Right, Vic. Yeah, thank you for that comment as well. You know, because that puts it into perspective too on how you would feel in a slow motion situation, you know. And gosh, I am so sorry for anybody who has lost a child. I could not go on. You know what I mean? You guys are so strong. You guys are so strong and brave, because I just, there's no way. There's no way, you know. And I mean, I only have one, you know, but so I know that you got to be strong when you have other kids. And, you know, going back to what Candace says, I understand that. You know, she says, I got to be strong for my boys, you know, and that is also a very motherly thing to say, right? To think about your other kids, even though your one child is missing. You know, because you couldn't just stop going on then, right? Because you have other little ones that rely on you, or other children who love you so much. And gosh. And Juicy Jules, good to see you, Juicy Jules. She says, trauma at the lake, she accidentally drowned. Yeah, I mean, very possible, right? Especially kind of what we're talking about right here, and other people's experiences. Like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Aw, thanks, Mama Davis. Thank you, Vic. Thanks, Suzanne. You guys are so sweet. Panda Bear's mom says, in my opinion, you'd feel that no matter what in any case. Just felt that the other day arguing with my sister's circumstances on behalf of greed. Oh no. I'm so sorry, Panda Bear's mom. That is so rough. I know that you've been going through that for a while now. You know, greed isn't one of the 7, you know, D sins, right? It's like those are the big 7, the big bad boys, right? Cause a lot of issues, a lot of toxicity. I'm so sorry. And it is sad. Michelle says she cries over the reaction of others about her instead of having emotions over her daughter being missing. I agree, Michelle. And it's like that. It's the very end of it, right? Where we just see this and it's like she's crying and it's like, oh my gosh, but you didn't cry about Summer at all. I mean, it's, you know. And we also see this with the Proud Feet, right? They are more worried about what people are saying about them on the internet. Here they are up here at court, right down there. At court, you know. They're worried about all of that rather than worrying about where's Sebastian. Just like she's worried about where, you know, she should be worried about where is Summer, you know, in my opinion. C-Star says Candace is a con, in my opinion. She's the victim in her mind. Oh yeah, absolutely. Same with Katie, in my opinion too. C-Star, very similar, you know, entitlement there. You know, Meg, that's a great question. I don't know if that water was ever searched. I am not sure, but I will find out. Because that's a great question. I was wondering that too. And I should have looked that up. But yeah, was the water ever searched? You know, do we know if they leaked, like, even the immediate area around that lake, you know? Yeah. Vic says the milk was for Don Boy. Lainey says, it's odd to me as a mom, there's no tears in both cases. My first baby was a dog and we lost her 3 years ago. Oh, and I loved her with everything. Her name brings floods. If she was missing, I'd still cry too. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, and the same thing like with Katie when she didn't have the window rolled down, you know? Yeah, and I agree. I think, and our fur babies are our babies, you know? They are. We love them. We don't want anything bad for them. You know, they're our best buds. Ooh, hot milk. I don't like that, Suzanne. You know, I will say though, I made like a latte tonight, you know, and I do like the frothing thing. I don't have any more froth left in there, and I get cinnamon everywhere, but I don't like it like hot milk. No. Oh, just like, ugh. And Lainey says, I've lost 2 fur babies and 1 human one, and that grief never leaves. They if they were just vanished, I think I might need a padded room. In my opinion, I couldn't handle that panic. I know, Lainey. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and 2 fur babies. Oh my goodness. Yeah, girl. I mean, I would be the same way. I just don't even know that I could. Um, I mean, because it's just like the not knowing, you know. Or I'd become like one of those, like, you know, woods people and just like get a walking stick and be out there all the time and like learn how to propel down this, because you know the terrain in Tennessee is very rocky and rugged and, you know, steep, and you know, but I think I would be out there like all the time, you know. But gosh, you guys are so strong. Betty says she has Summer around her neck. Look at her necklace. Oh, I didn't notice her necklace, Betty. Vic says, my cat was missing and I looked every night for months till I found her. Oh, I'm so glad you found her, Vic. Aw. Her and Grandis playing Monopoly while searches are going on. Oh, my Lord. Really, Vic? Vic says, what a reputation those feet have. Oh, my God. Just ridiculous. Well, and just so many, there's a lot of the things they're doing, you know? There's a lot of the things they're doing. James says, I lived in Oklahoma out in the middle of nowhere, and when my second oldest, my son was 4, had disappeared, and I was losing my mind, running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and the fear, James, my goodness, I had was with so many small ponds that surrounded our trailer, and literally running to almost everywhere of them, thinking that I was going to find my 4-year-old. Oh no. And the biggest scare of my life. Oh gosh, I can't imagine, James. My Lord. Oh my goodness. Had so many kids that was helping me search, and he was there 1 minute and then gone in a second, and can't say how much relief fell off my shoulders when one of the teenage kids yelled, over here. Oh, thank God. Thank God, James. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you were able to find him. My Lord. It's like, and that's how it is, right? 1 second, you know, and they could be anywhere. It takes only a second, you know? Oh my Lord. C-Star says there were divers who searched. Thank you, C-Star. But I'm not sure where. This area must have been. Yeah, it's the state park. So I would think, and you know, very smart move to take her back to this park, you know, back to this park. Very smart move, you know. Anne says, when I lost my son, I couldn't sleep for a long time and still don't sleep good. And when I had my son's memorial service, one of my family members told me that he is gone now and you will need to forget about it. Oh, Anne, that's the worst advice I've ever heard. Well, one of, maybe not the very worst, but one of the very worst. You know, that's no, that's not possible. That's not possible, you know. And I believe that you need to remember and honor people, you know, because that's how you can heal. And I'm so sorry that somebody said that to you. That breaks my heart, because you didn't deserve that, and neither does the people that we love, right? You know, because they deserve to be remembered, they deserve to be honored. Oh, Anne, I know, hun. And it does hurt when people say idiotic things like that. That's the dumbest crap I've heard. Carla says, Anne, how could anyone say just forget about their child? No way. It's not possible. You know, but then we see these parents over here. I hate to say it, but, you know, forget about it. Don't talk about it. You know, don't put them on a billboard, you know, that sort of thing. Mama Davis says, it's really amazing the strength you find. My strength has come from the Lord. Absolutely. You know, Mama Davis, thank you for that. That's such a good reminder, you know? That is such a good reminder. Yeah, I think they have a very, very cold heart. I do too. I do too. And yes, yes, absolutely. Only a cold-hearted person would say something like that. You know what I mean? Especially at a memorial service and that soon. But I mean, even 20 years after, no way. Even a million years after, you know what I mean? No, Yeah, people are so dumb sometimes. Oh, absolutely, C Star. Oh, good Lord. They are. They're absolutely, and and maybe it's because they don't have those types of feelings, right? Because some of us feel things more deeply than other people. But I would much rather be that way. Um, oh, I'm so glad you found him, James. James, that would be so scary. I would be like, beside myself. I'd be like a nut running around. Um, Betty says Candace and Don both have an oh, okay, thank you, Betty. Betty says Candace and Don both have earned necklaces if you look at the interview with the TV. Okay, okay. And I know they did like a very recent or a more recent video interview. Um James, that's a good range of emotions. James says, I was relieved, mad, and so happy all at the same time. Right? And you're like, don't scare me like that, please. You almost killed me. Like, hey, Tony Fire. Good to see you. Thank you for being here. Good morning. Aw. Oh, oh, I see. That's okay, Tony Fire. He says, I'm not going to talk about Candace. In my opinion, she's mentally challenged enough. I feel sorry for her. Yeah, Lucky here. I can have a different opinion. For sure. Of course you can, Tony. We love you. Yeah, look, I have wondered that too about Candace, because she's very much um, when she shuts down, right? There's a lot to that. Yeah, and and I really appreciate this interview, and I thought it was so well done, and I was grateful that you know Chris McDonough was showing her respect, because we all deserve respect. And again, Candace, has not been arrested. She is innocent until proven guilty, in a court of law. Absolutely. No, and I agree, um, that 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 very well could be. I mean, and it's not, it isn't fair to um, to talk bad about her. It isn't, but that could explain like the block of blocking off the emotions, like I said, and things like that. That could really explain a lot of that. So thank you. I always enjoy other opinions. I really do. James says, after that day, I believe me, never let any of my 3 kids out of my sight ever again. Aw, James, exactly. Well, you live and learn. You live and learn. And it's not like you were intentionally not watching over. It was just little kids are fast. Little kids are really fast. And you do have to watch extra close, especially just anytime. Gosh, it just happens. Stuff can happen so fast. Things can change in a second. um oh, thank you, Suzanne. So Suzanne says, Lady Freedom, in both cases the grandmothers were not supposed to be around children. Thank you for letting me know that. That is a great point. Well, that's a great point then. Um, yes, I do remember you telling me, Anne. I remember. I know. C Star, life goes on. Chris Proudfoot. I mean, you know, hey Katie, put those big girl pants up. You know, they do play with your emotions, Panda Bear's mom. I know. Yeah, I agree. Vic says, does anyone really know why Grandis can't be around children? I'm not. I didn't know that till just now, Vic. Um, Detroit says that's terrifying, James. Same thing happened to me at the beach when my son was 4. Oh my goodness, Detroit. He went to get a snack from his grandma and went up to the blanket and he wasn't there. Oh my goodness. Was screaming and ran. Oh my goodness. Ran back to the water and I couldn't find him. The lifeguard didn't see him and I ran to the ranger's office and someone brought him there. Oh, good thing. Oh my goodness, Detroit. Gee whiz. The sheer panic and relief I felt was beyond anything I've ever experienced. Oh Lord, I bet. I mean, that's got to be the scariest thing, right? Because the water and, everything, people everywhere. Definitely, because it can just happen so quickly. Yeah, I wonder why too, Carla, why she wasn't allowed. Hey, Beck Cook. Beck Cook says, what makes KP and Candace similar is their moms. CW's mom is not in black and white like CP's mom, who is black and white level 3, in my opinion. God bless. Thank you, Beck Cook. Thank you. Yeah, okay, so I gotcha. Those people a lot of times don't get caught many, many times until they are, they have a lot of people in their wake, she has had so many. The summer would always be with her. Oh, man. Oh, Mama Davis says, Carla, was it her grandma or her grandma's brother? Remember her brother. James Cooper says, I remember hearing Don so drunk and sounded like a demon speaking through him or himself being the demon. That was crazy. Oh, no. Ooh, and Chris does that same really deep, creepy voice, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom says, you may disagree with this comment, and that's okay, but why does anyone show sympathy and grace for Candace, innocent until proven guilty, but not KP? She has her own issues, too. Hey, that's a good point, though, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom. I mean, I agree that Katie has a lot of trauma and things like that, I mean, and none of us have had the easiest time of it. That's a good question, though. Yeah, because I think really Katie has a lot of generational trauma. I also agree with the panel that we went over last night on Vinnie P. Right, it was Dr. Carol Lieberman. She was talking about how she's very used to working with DV, victims, and that, she looks at Katie and she sees a lot of those same characteristics, and she thinks, that that Katie really wasn't even looking for approval. She's like, it's kind of fear-based, like checking to see if it's okay, which is somewhat approval, but not really the approval that we're, kind of a different type of context. But yeah, I think that's a valid question. I don't know. I feel, in my opinion, they both need to be held accountable because they were with, their children last. But I also, like I said, there's like about a 30% chance for me that there could have been an accident, involved in both of these cases, where, yeah, mom was there, mom was responsible, but it wasn't like, an intentional act or anything. It was more of an accident. Oh, Vic, I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. Aw, they do grow up fast before your eyes, James Cooper. Oh, so sorry, Vic. And Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom says, I believe they both know what happened to their kids, but I don't know that for sure. That's just my speculation. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, you know, they are innocent until proven guilty, both of them. Yeah, neither one of them have been, you know, charged with anything. You know, Don was in trouble, like, you know, alcohol related, but it wasn't anything, you know, having to do with Summer. So, yeah, Salty Gigi. Mama says, I think Candace is mentally challenged, but I think she is smart enough to know right from wrong. If they ever charge anyone, I think she would be competent enough to stand trial if she was charged. You know, that's a great point, Mountain Mama. I agree. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think I do believe, and see, and that would be, you know, the standard, right? When she's evaluated, does she understand right from wrong? You know, can she differentiate? Sorry if I mispronounced that one. Between the two, and you know, I believe she is able to. I think maybe she has a lower IQ, and she's maybe in like a lower IQ range, and I don't mean that as any disrespect at all. But that's just kind of my assessment. I'm not a doctor or an expert at all in that, but just kind of from observations. Yeah, I agree. That would be the standard, right? To if you're fit for trial, absolutely competent enough to stand trial. So yeah. And we have one more clip. Oh, Detroit Rock City. Yeah, I heard about that today, actually, that Don was on Justin's channel and he was like threatening Josh. And I'm like, oh, and like in really bad ways, you know, I'm not even going to repeat it. Like, ugh, what a jerk. You know, it's like, what is wrong with you? And why are they threatening YouTubers? Why are they threatening YouTubists? Why should we be doing this? You know, what brings you to that, right? Because it's like, we're just speculating, you know, unless somebody's like, maybe, I don't know, but I like Josh. He's a good guy. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and, well, in my opinion, I do think that Candace has a very soft side to her. So, but I haven't really fully made up my mind what I think of Candace as a person just yet. I mean, I've always kind of thought, I don't know, but we're doing a deep dive, so we'll see what we come up with at the end of it, you know? Okay, here's our last clip.
That is why I'm here. I'm not interfering with the investigators. I'm letting them do.
I'm not neither. I'm going to let them do their job.
Let them do their thing.
Do their job.
Let them do their thing.
That's all.
Okay. And you know, you came down here on your own to walk me through this.
Yes, sir.
I credit you for that. I respect you for that. Okay? And somebody's going to find something wrong with it, though.
Of course they will.
I'm giving you a heads up. Okay?
Oh, I already know this.
All right. I'm just telling you. Okay.
That's how the world is today.
It is. Now, the other side of that, okay, is if there is a suspicious person or somebody like that, that now you mentioned, or Don, I can't remember in the first interview, Donna had mentioned that on the news, he mentioned that he thought that she was abducted. How did that conclusion come so quickly? Help me understand that.
Because she never wanders.
Okay.
She always stays right there by the house, right there by the swing.
Okay.
She'll go to grandma's, but she'll be right back to the house.
Okay.
She'll never leave the house. She'll never go out of my sight.
Okay. So what did you tell Dawn at work when you called him?
I just said she was missing. I can't find her. That's all I said.
Do you remember where he was that day? What job site he was on?
I believe he was in Jonesboro at the Meadows, I believe.
Okay, and he's hanging drywall?
No, he's finishing drywall.
Okay, so he's a finisher?
Yeah.
Okay, a taper?
Yep.
Got it. And do you help him?
Well, I tried to help him yesterday, but I just...
Yesterday when I called you, is that where you were working? You told me you were working, and you said you were going to go to church.
Yep.
And you went to church.
Yep,
okay. So you did all the things you told me you were going to do.
Sir.
And I got it. Okay. So that all lined up. Okay. And now, when you called him, what was his reaction?
He's like, "What? Are you playing with me?" I was like, "No, I'm not playing." He's like, "Call 911," and that's what I did.
Okay.
That was all that was said.
Okay. Okay. What was Grandma doing?
Grandma was out hollering for as much as she could. She couldn't. She can't really get down my driveway's horrible.
Right.
Horrible.
Right.
I don't know if you ever been out there. But
I went to your end. I didn't go up.
Right. It's horrible out there. The driveway's nasty. Every time it rains, all the gravel goes into the creek.
Okay. Is Don home now?
No, he's actually at work.
Okay. Do you think you could show me where she was, where you were, and so we can?
My house?
Yeah.
Yeah. No problem.
Is that cool?
That's fine.
Okay. Well, let's.
Okay, guys. So they're gonna head over to the house. So there was a bunch of conflicting statements, in my opinion, right here from Candace, right? So, one similarity really quick between Sebastian's case, the use of the word wandering, or the fact that the child never wanders, right? So Sebastian never wanders, Summer never wanders, right? I mean, it's weird. It's uncanny. Chris asks Candace what she said to Don when she called him. And she says, quote, "She is missing. I can't find her." So she tells him that Summer is missing right off the bat, which I find to be a little bit odd, right? But nevertheless, that's what she tells him. She also reconfirms the same story that Don says, which was that he was working in Jonesboro that day. And in the video I will link in the description from the last live, I do play Don's interview that he gives out when Summer first went missing, talking about how he was working in Jonesboro that day. And Chris asks her a more in-depth question about Don and what he was doing. Was he, hanging drywall? And she said, no, he was, finishing the drywall, kind of a thing. So there's that. So she even, kept the lie going there, in my opinion. And he goes, well, excuse me. So Chris says to her, so what did Don say back to you when you told him Summer was missing and that you couldn't find her? And he says, and she claims that Don said, "Are you playing?" and then told her to call 911. Which again, we kind of heard that same statement by, Mr. Stepfoot. He was saying, do what, did you look here? Did you look there? Kind of a thing. So again, it was kind of like he didn't take it seriously at first. And then, Chris says, well, what was, Grandis doing? And she says, well, she was hollering for her. And she said that her driveway is horrible, that when it rains, the driveway gets washed out down into the creek. All the gravel from the driveway does. And she said it's horrible, and you're going to see it when we get over there, but you can't, get in and out very easily. But I thought that she said that Summer was possibly abducted, and that is her top theory, is that somebody snuck in and grabbed Summer. Well, how would they get in and out of the property if not through that driveway? That was really, really messed up. That sounds like it was washed out that day, or had been recently, so washed out that, Grandis couldn't get up and down, the gravel road. So I found that to be really, really interesting, and very kind of contradictory to what, what she was saying about how she thought that possibly Summer was, taken by someone. Hey, Lola. Lola says, in my opinion, Summer was sold by her parents, in my opinion, to settle rug debts. Oh, yeah, I can see that, Lolo. I think that sounds like a really valid theory, because of what because of everything that has transpired, right, in the last 4 years too, because we see that kind of lifestyle and how they were living that life, right? And I can see that. And then also that barrel, the barrel for sale with Summer next to it wearing a dress. It's like, it's absolutely sickening to look at it, you know, and know what happened to Summer or what we think could have happened, you know. Um, who to- who Tony M? No, that is Chris McDonough from the no, yeah, that no, that's not Tony M. No, no, no. Hey, Bet Cook. Bet Cook says, can anyone say what happens when they are arrested? I'd love to know. Um, oh, well, I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping that whoever is responsible is arrested, in my opinion. No, 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 no. No. And Anne says, and the day my son passed, my one niece came up and said that she had to pass the day before her birthday. Oh, oh gosh, Anne, I'm sorry. Oh. It is a mystery, Vic. It is. Yeah, I will show the house tomorrow. I'm going to show the house tomorrow. So there's a whole interview with Chris and they go over to the house and I'm going to, you know, show it all to you guys tomorrow. Um, so you can see it, you know, and yeah, tomorrow's the house, Sea Star. Yeah. And we'll go over it. And I mean, it's shocking, especially like what we see on the television screen. Like there's so much. So I'm actually going to hop off and work on that and kind of get that rolling too. I also want to put out the Chris Proudfoot and Seth interview because I know there was a lot of people playing them separately and I want to put them together so that way people can see them together so it puts more context and, you know, that sort of thing. So I'm still working on that. It's just been, you know, kind of busy and that sort of thing. Thank you, Panda Bear's mom. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so we will do that. And thank you all so much for being here. And thank you for letting me spread awareness about Summer. I'm really happy that Dog the Bounty Hunter has added her to the billboards. And I think it's just a great time for us to revive her case after 4 years because on June 15th of 2025, it will be 4 years since Summer Wells has been missing. And we still don't know where she is. There are no arrests. There's no persons of interest that we know about. And there's a lot of really, really bad characters, just like in Sebastian's case. And, you know, I really can't wait to discuss it with you and, you know, find out what you all think about Summer's house. Because when I saw this interview for the first time, I was completely shocked. And, you know, even watching it over again, I'm sure I'm going to be equally shocked and kind of remember new things. But I really want to get deep dive into these comparisons and try and see if we can't revive her case a little bit. So I love you all so very, very, very much. Yeah, Perfectly Imperfect Boy Mom. So that billboard that's up there, I did not make that. There's a $500,000 reward for any information that leads to the arrest and conviction of whoever hurt Summer Wells or Sebastian Rogers, right? So they did add Summer to the billboards at Night did. So, and you know, we were already kind of working on this comparison. I will link the videos down in the description tonight, in this video description. But you know, then we had Dog the Bounty Hunter step up, and it's like, yeah. So I hate that she's still missing, but I hope that we can revive her case, you know, and spark up new ideas, even though it's been 4 years. But you know, looking back in hindsight isn't always so bad too, because we can see things more clearly, I think. But all right, you guys, you all take care. I love you all so very, very much. I will see you tomorrow night.